If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 41, The First Eye. She is Haley, said Andrew, introducing Haley to Pippa and her friends. He also introduced Leonard and Howard, who were very nervous. Hi. Haley greeted lazily, her gaze settling on Pippa. Pippa had short, straight hair, lighter at the tips, blue eyes and skin as white as a lily. As for her outfit, she wore a retro-style short-sleeved shirt in a reddish tone, paired with overalls. She's cute. Haley thought, unable to deny the reality. Andrew's cousin, Pippa thought as she also looked at Haley. She couldn't understand why Haley had come here at the last minute, being one of the most popular girls in her grade, but she didn't mind her presence. Zach was inwardly delighted by Haley's sudden arrival. He needed to take advantage of tonight and score some points with her. As for Kara or Lauren, he felt no attraction and saw them more as childhood friends, unlike Connor with Pippa. The gathering at Pippa's house began. Andrew preferred this 1,000 times more than a crowded party with mostly strangers, alcohol and who knows what other substances. A gathering like this was much more fun for him. They played board games, chatted about the game, watched a movie, joked around, and more. It was a great night. Andrew found Pippa's friends very entertaining, especially Kara, Lauren, and Zach. As for Connor, he didn't like him much because every time Andrew was talking to Pippa, Connor would butt in. Whether by joining the conversation, interrupting with some comment, or suggesting they do something else. As the night went on, Andrew started observing Connor more closely and noticed that he kept his attention fixed on Pippa more than on anyone else in the group. Connor likes Pippa. Andrew concluded, feeling a slight discomfort he couldn't ignore. Why did this bother him? Could it be that he also had feelings for Pippa? He hadn't really reflected on his emotions when it came to romance, but he always looked forward to going to Pippa's house on Saturdays or Sundays to be alone with her, whether it was to talk about their programming project, trivial topics, or play some mobile game together. Thinking about all of this, the signs were evident. Yes, I feel something for her, Andrew thought as he sipped juice from a glass. He was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor. It was almost 1 in the morning, and his parents would soon come to pick him up. Howard and Leonard had a good time tonight, though they were still shy and not the best at socializing. They got along very well with Zach, a half-Asian boy with round glasses and quite tall for his age. Zach was a film enthusiast, and the movie they watched today was Back to the Future, a film Leonard and Howard had seen many times before. They had a great conversation/debate with Zach about it. Howard didn't have the courage to talk to Kara. He knew what she liked but didn't know how to start a conversation. Still, he felt he would have more chances if he were invited again in the future, and judging by how this gathering went, he might become part of this group of friends. His moment would come, he just had to wait a little longer and be patient. As Andrew realized his own feelings, he didn't want to leave. He wanted to spend more time with Pippa and have a one-on-one conversation. Moreover, they wouldn't see each other tomorrow or the day after, as Pippa was busy on Saturday, and he was busy on Sunday. They had decided to work on their programming assignments from home. Thinking this through, Andrew realized it wasn't mandatory to meet up to work on the project. They could easily do it from their own homes, on their computers. They already knew what they needed to do and what each of their tasks was. Still, Andrew kept coming to this house. Considering Pippa was a perfectionist who valued maximum productivity, it was odd that she hadn't suggested working from home. That way, they wouldn't be distracted by playing games on their phones or talking about trivial things, often neglecting to write code. Could she have a slight interest in me? Andrew wondered, having a small revelation. Andrew set the glass down on the coffee table and discreetly glanced at Pippa, who was a few feet away, talking with Clara and Lauren. Everyone was tired from the long day at school and all they had done afterward. Leonard and Howard were chatting with Zach. Connor was near Pippa, trying to join the conversation but not succeeding. As for Haley, she was sitting next to Andrew, looking at her phone, browsing photos her friends had sent her from Liam's party. She was the one who had the least connection with the group. She only talked to Andrew and a little with Leonard. Her main mission was to interfere in Andrew and Pippa's conversation. The same as Connor. Andrew noticed, but he didn't say anything. He thought maybe she wanted to be friends with Pippa or something like that. Ugh. They'll talk about that party all week and I missed it, Haley sighed as she scrolled through the photos. Plus, the party was still going on, unlike here, where everything had already ended. Why did you come here? Andrew asked, raising an eyebrow. Because my mom didn't let me go to the other party, Haley lied with extreme ease. At that moment, Andrew remembered the conversation he had earlier in the afternoon with his friends when they were eating at the restaurant before the game. The conversation about his nutritional jokes that were only funny to the girls interested in him, according to the guys on the team. If these jokes were as bad as Kevin and the others said, what would happen if he made a joke here and Pippa laughed? Would it mean she was interested in him in a more romantic sense? The answer would be yes, as long as she laughed at his bad nutritional joke. All he had to do was test the theory, and for that, he had to make a nutritional joke that could make things really awkward if no one laughed. With this in mind, Andrew decided to test his theory. He took a deep breath before approaching Leonard, who was listening to a heated discussion about Star Wars between Zack and Howard. Hey, Leonard, Andrew said quietly, why don't you try the fries on the table? What do you think? Hey? Why? I've eaten a lot tonight, Leonard said, not understanding what Andrew suddenly wanted. Just go along with it, say they're good, and make sure everyone hears you. I need your help, Andrew whispered. Leonard raised an eyebrow, but seeing there was no major complication in what Andrew was asking, he agreed without thinking much. With a somewhat strange expression, he took some fries and put them in his mouth. These fries are good. Leonard exclaimed loudly, though his tone didn't sound very convincing. Andrew made the first fries joke that came to mind. A joke criticizing fries from a scientific perspective with a punchline that no one would find funny, at least for most people with a normal sense of humor. Instantly, he heard a laugh. It was Haley, laughing exaggeratedly. Andrew looked at her, confused, clearly not expecting his cousin to laugh at his nutritional joke. But he stopped thinking about it, as another laugh was heard in the room. The laugh belonged to Pippa, and it was more genuine and less exaggerated than Haley's. Kara and Lauren looked at their friend, unable to believe she was laughing at such a bad joke. Leonard was trying to figure out what had just happened and what the hell Andrew had said. Was that a joke? Why couldn't he find it funny? She laughed. Andrew thought, ecstatic. The moment of uncertainty completely disappeared, replaced by a wave of excitement. That meant Pippa was interested in him. As long as he believed the words Reggie and the others had said. He should take their words with a grain of salt since his friends aren't exactly experts in romance. Even though they are athletes, each of them has only had one girlfriend at most. After confirming this and feeling a little more sure that there might be an interest from Pippa in him, Andrew sent a message to his parents. In the message, told them to come and pick him up a little later. So he could be alone with Pippa without Connor and Haley. He had to make his move tonight. It was all or nothing. He briefly explained the situation to his parents. Kim responded instantly, sending enthusiastic encouragement when he learned that his son was interested in a girl. Minutes passed, and in half an hour, everyone had left. Claire came to pick up Haley. Connor and the other friends of Pippa left as well. Howard also left with Leonard. Debbie came to pick them up. Only he was left with Pippa. Chapter 42, the first two. Only he and Pippa were left. Step 1 complete. Andrew thought as he sat nervously on the couch. Many negative thoughts swirled in his mind. Was he rushing things too much? What if Pippa just laughed out of kindness so he wouldn't look like an idiot in front of her friends? Did she really have feelings for him? Or was he just overthinking everything? It had only been a month since they met, maybe he could wait a little longer and look for more signs that Pippa was interested in him. But what if Connor decided to make a move and try something with Pippa? Would Andrew even stand a chance? Connor and Pippa had a longer history together than he did. No. I have to do it now, Andrew thought, shaking his head. He was never one to back down. Well, okay, maybe he was like when he dated Veronica and couldn't bring himself to break up with her. But in situations like this, he acted. He didn't stand on the sidelines watching. Andrew. Pippa called, her voice breaking through his thoughts. She was looking at him while he sat on the edge of the couch cushion, staring at the floor, hands clasped tightly together. Andrew snapped out of his daze and looked up. There she was, her beautiful blue eyes fixed on him. Are the others already gone? Andrew asked, straightening his posture. Yes, Howard's mom is quite the character. Pippa replied with a strange smile, briefly recalling how Debbie and Howard had been yelling at each other over something trivial just moments ago. Andrew laughed lightly, but just as he was about to say something to Pip, the door leading to the other room opened and Victor walked in. Oh, Andrew, you're still here? Victor asked with a smile. He seemed eager to talk to Andrew about the game. Yeah, my parents will be here soon, Andrew replied as Victor sat down on the couch across from him and started enthusiastically talking about the game. Pippa sighed internally. She had thought she'd finally get a moment alone with Andrew, without interruptions from Connor or Haley. But now her dad had shown up, bursting with energy to chat about touchdowns. Andrew's plan was effectively ruined by Victor's sudden entrance. There was no way he could make his move with Pippa's father in the same room. After a few minutes, Pippa took a deep breath and said, "Dad, I need to show Andrew something for the school project in my room since we're not meeting tomorrow." "Sure, go ahead, but leave the door open and don't take too long," Victor said, pausing his touchdown talk to glance at Pippa. Pippa gestured to Andrew with her head, and he awkwardly got up from the couch to follow her. They left the living room and began climbing the stairs. Am I really going to her room? Andrew thought nervously, swallowing hard. This was better than he'd expected, though it made him even more anxious. They passed the first door, which had a sign with the name Josh, and stopped at the second door. "Wait a second," Pippa said as she entered and closed the door behind her. Andrew stood there waiting, confused about what Pippa could be doing inside. Was her room messy? Strange for someone as perfectionist and organized as she was. A minute later, Pippa opened the door and gestured for him to come in. It was Andrew's first time in this life visiting a girl's room aside from his cousins' rooms, Haley and Alex. Everything's so neat, and it smells nice, Andrew thought, curiously observing the room. The decor had a vintage theme, with dark wooden furniture, pastel accents, and some antique-style lamps. It was an unusual choice for a teenage girl, but to Andrew, it fit Pippa's personality perfectly. Once he stepped inside, Pippa left the door slightly ajar, then walked over and sat on her bed, looking at Andrew, who stood awkwardly in the middle of the room. "Did you have something to show me for the project?" Andrew asked, trying to mask his nervousness. "No, that was just an excuse to save you from my dad," Pippa said with a smile that Andrew found utterly charming. "Come, sit down," she added, patting the spot beside her on the bed in a friendly manner. Andrew hesitated for a second before walking over and sitting next to her. "Thanks, I was getting tired of talking about tonight's game," Andrew said. "I didn't expect that from you, a football fan and the star quarterback," Pippa teased with a faint smile. "Well, everyone already asked me about the game. I was a bit drained, and besides, I wanted to talk to you, alone," Andrew said, trying to sound as casual as possible. Pippa, who was ready to exchange her usual jokes with Andrew, fell silent, staring at him intently. The room grew quiet for a few moments, with both of them gazing at each other without saying a word. Andrew felt the air grow heavier. "It's time," he thought as he slowly leaned closer to Pippa, closing the distance between them. When their faces were almost touching, Andrew, unable to hold back any longer, closed his eyes and kissed Pippa. At first, there was no reaction. Pippa remained still, frozen as if she were in shock, not responding to the kiss. Andrew, confused and feeling like the moment had been a complete failure, quickly pulled away, his heart pounding. "Sorry, I shouldn't have," Andrew murmured, looking at Pippa and waiting for some kind of response. That was when Pippa reacted. She blinked as if snapping back to reality, and without thinking, she leaned forward and kissed Andrew. This time, she closed her eyes, and now it was Andrew who kept his eyes open, a bit confused by the sudden turn of events. But he quickly closed them and surrendered to the kiss, savoring the feeling of Pippa's lips. After a few seconds, they pulled away and just stared at each other. "Whew, I thought I'd blown it," Andrew thought, relieved. He couldn't help but wonder about Pippa's strange initial reaction when she had frozen up. While Andrew was reflecting on that, Pippa's mind was in chaos. She hadn't expected Andrew to be so bold and kiss her here and now. Sure, she had considered the possibility that he might be interested in her, but she never imagined he would show it so directly. As for her own feelings, she clearly had some for him, otherwise, she wouldn't have kissed him back. "Is my breath okay?" Pippa wondered, touching her lips as if to confirm something. Then another worry hit her. "Oh no, I ate way too many fries tonight. Do my lips taste greasy?" Her nerves spiked as she regretted the mountain of snacks she'd devoured earlier. As these thoughts swirled in her head, she felt warmth creeping up her pale cheeks. Even Andrew noticed the faint blush spreading across her face. Then another reflection made her cheeks burn even more. "Am I good at kissing?" Pippa wondered, realizing it had been her first kiss and fretting over whether Andrew had noticed. While these absurd, chaotic thoughts overwhelmed her, Pippa tried to keep her composure. But Andrew had already noticed her nervous gestures and flushed cheeks. "That was a really nice kiss," Andrew said, trying to guess one of Pippa's concerns, and he nailed it. "That's a relief. Are you a mind reader?" Pippa asked softly. "No, but it was easy to read your expression and take a guess." "I've never seen you this nervous," Andrew replied with an amused smile. "Shut up, you were nervous too," said Pippa, giving Andrew a playful tap on the shoulder, which made him laugh. After that, they both fell silent again, staring at each other. Just as they were about to kiss again, a shout came from downstairs. "Andrew, your parents are at the door," Victor called out. "Don't shout, you idiot. Josh is sleeping," said another voice, belonging to Leanne. Pippa and Andrew exchanged amused looks, both smiling. Andrew was a little surprised to hear Pippa's kind mother scolding someone. It wasn't something she did often. "Well, I have to go," Andrew said, standing up from the bed and walking to the door, with Pippa following him. Chapter 43, Surprise. 2 months later. "The damn window camper killed me." Andrew heard Howard's voice through his headset. They were playing a match of the new Call of Duty, World at War. It was a multiplayer match with Leonard and Howard in hardcore team deathmatch mode. Of course, Andrew was recording the gameplay to edit and upload to YouTube later. Howard and Leonard's commentary would be in the video, which made it way more entertaining compared to playing alone. This wasn't the first video Andrew uploaded featuring Leonard and Howard. He'd already posted 2 others, and they were very well received. At this moment, Andrew's YouTube channel had surpassed an incredible milestone: 10,000 subscribers. He hit that number in just 3 months, or to be exact, 88 days since uploading his first video. "Come on, Ringo, stop dying," Andrew said as he circled a building, closing in on the camper Howard hadn't been able to take out. Leonard burst out laughing when he heard Andrew call Howard Ringo. He'd heard it before, but it was still hilarious. Ringo is the nickname Howard uses in the videos, though he didn't choose it. Leonard and Andrew gave it to him. "That's not my nickname. I told you my gamertag is Proman69, Howard said angrily. "Oh yeah, maybe when you stop dying and get a girlfriend, we'll call you that," Leonard commented, and Andrew laughed as he killed the camper with a sneak attack from behind. "Shut up, Wazowski. When you grow a few inches, you can join this conversation," Howard shot back mockingly. That was the nickname he gave Leonard due to his short stature and broad build. "Here we go again," Andrew thought with a faint smile as he landed a headshot on another camper. "When you beat me in kills, we'll talk, Ringo," Leonard said, igniting another round of bickering. Andrew found them fighting in a knife duel in a highly dangerous area. Since it was hardcore mode, friendly fire was enabled. But if you killed too many teammates, you'd lose points or even get kicked from the match. "Come closer, Wazowski. Or are you as cowardly as you are in real life?" Howard taunted, trying to provoke Leonard. "I'll show you how the pros play, Ringo," Leonard replied. And so, the two began fighting each other, completely forgetting about the match. Andrew, too, forgot that they were in the final phase of the game. He was too entertained watching his 2 friends stabbing each other with knives. "A grenade," Andrew thought as he noticed a grenade drop right in the middle of their fight. Boom! The explosion went off instantly, killing both Howard and Leonard in a double kill. Andrew didn't even have time to react or locate the enemy who threw the grenade before his character was riddled with bullets and died. After this triple kill, the match ended with Andrew's team losing. Andrew, Ringo, and Wazowski sat in silence, staring at the defeat screen. At that moment, a voice broke through the voice chat. "Really? A Russian's insulting us?" Leonard asked, lamenting the lost match. Losing a hardcore game always left a bitter taste. "What did you expect? We killed each other," Howard said, resigned. "Look at the chat. He's still insulting us," Andrew said, half amused. He had no idea what the Russian was typing, but it couldn't be anything good. "Why did he switch to text chat?" Leonard asked. "His mom probably scolded him for yelling," Howard replied, then started responding to the Russian in his own language, saying exactly what he had just mentioned. "This video is going to be fun," Andrew thought as he left the lobby and closed the game. "Aren't you playing another one?" "It's still early," Leonard asked, noticing that Andrew had logged off. "No, I have something to do," Andrew answered, being vague. "What? Talk to your girlfriend?" Howard asked in a jealous tone, having just finished arguing with the Russian. By girlfriend, he was referring to Pippa. It had been 2 months since Andrew had shared his first kiss with her. "Yeah, I'll talk to her, but she's not my girlfriend yet, for now," Andrew replied, smiling slightly as he remembered the kiss they'd shared in Pippa's room months ago. Since that moment, his relationship with Pippa had improved significantly. They understood each other well and had a great time together. At this point, Andrew and Pippa were in the dating phase. They spent a lot of time together, as if they were a couple, but they hadn't explicitly defined their relationship. They'd gone to the movies, out to eat, and other places, enjoying their time together. Even though they acted like a couple, they hadn't formally said what kind of relationship they had. Tomorrow, Friday, was the last game of the regular season. It was an important match, even though they had already secured a spot in the regional playoffs regardless of the outcome. The California Interscholastic Federation, CIF, is divided into 10 main sections, and Andrew's school belongs to the CIF LAX, Los Angeles City section. In this section, there are 32 teams in Division 5, one of which is Andrew's school. During the regular season, these 32 teams are divided into 4 groups of 8. Each team plays games within their group, facing each other from September to November. At the end of the regular season, the teams with the best win-loss records across the section qualify for the regional playoffs. In this case, 16 of the 32 teams will advance to the regional playoffs. Andrew's team had won 5 games and lost only 1 so far. With this record, the team was already among the top 16 in the section, guaranteeing their spot in the regional playoffs. Although tomorrow's game wasn't crucial, it held strategic importance. The better the record at the end of the regular season, the better their playoff seeding, which meant facing a weaker team in the first round. "You haven't made it official yet? You two are practically glued to each other all day," Leonard commented in a strange tone. "No, but I'm asking her officially tomorrow. I've got it all planned out. We'll win, I'll have a great game, we'll qualify for regionals with an amazing record, and the cherry on top will be that we'll officially be boyfriend and girlfriend," Andrew said, already envisioning the plan in his head. Cam, his dad, had taught him that special moments should be grand, done with style, and given the importance they deserved. What better way to make it official than to ask Pippa to be his girlfriend right after the final game of the regular season? "Don't tell me you're still doubting she'll say yes. You two already act like a couple, the only thing missing is saying it," Howard added. "I know, but it has to be said explicitly, and it's even better if it's grand, so everyone knows," Andrew replied. "Wow, take it easy, Romeo," Howard said. "What's wrong with that?" Andrew asked. "Do you think Pippa will be comfortable with you doing it so publicly? She'll become the center of attention for everyone on the field," Howard asked. This last game was being played at home, so almost the entire school would be attending. The team had never had such a good winning streak, and this was the first time in several years they were qualifying for the regional playoffs. After the final whistle, everyone who wanted to could enter the field to celebrate with the team family, friends, and classmates. Andrew paused for a moment, thinking. Howard's question made sense. Pippa had always been pretty low-key when it came to being in the spotlight, though things had changed a bit since they started seeing each other 2 months ago. Andrew, as the quarterback who earned his starting position in an epic way and led the team to victory after victory, had become one of the most popular students in high school. And he was just a junior who had only started high school a few months ago. The attention on him also made everyone focus on Pippa, the girl who walked hand in hand with him down the hallways and acted very affectionate and close. While Pippa didn't seem to seek attention and couldn't care less about popularity, she also didn't seem bothered by being in the spotlight. She didn't have a problem with it. "I doubt she'll mind. At most, she'll blush a little, and she's so cute when she does," Andrew thought, deciding he would go ahead with the grand gesture anyway. "Don't tell me you're going to listen to Howard? Seriously? He's never even had a girlfriend," Leonard said, breaking the silence from Andrew. "Of course not. I'm doing it no matter what he says, Ringo," Andrew finally replied, as Leonard laughed and Howard started ranting, as usual. Andrew ended the call with the guys. He took off his headphones, turned off the mic, and grabbed his phone. He called Pippa, and as the phone began to ring, he moved his mouse with his left hand to click on his browser. His gaze shifted between his PC screen and his phone, as though he wanted to do everything at once. He held the phone with his shoulder, pressing it against his ear, while scrolling through the internet and heading to his email. He hadn't checked it all day. The inbox appeared. Among the usual emails, one stood out in a way that made him freeze. His eyes widened as he read the subject line, written in clear letters. YouTube Partner Invitation. Chapter 44, YouTube Partner Invitation. Note, Andrew's gaming channel name has been changed to Maverick 12. Finally, thought Andrew, clicking on YouTube's Run button. YouTube Partner is a program officially launched in 2007 that allows content creators to monetize their videos. YouTube itself invites content creators with popular or highly engaging channels to join the program. Monetization primarily relies on pre-roll ads, the ads shown before a video, and banners on the channel page. YouTube takes a portion of the revenue generated by the ads, and the rest goes to the creator. Andrew has known about this program since he uploaded his first video. At first, he didn't see it as a goal, considering his YouTuber career more of a hobby. However, the massive growth he experienced made him change his perspective. If he could monetize his videos, it would be amazing. Who doesn't like earning money while doing something they love? Double prize. Andrew had been waiting for the invitation ever since he started gaining subscribers daily. He had an audience that supported his videos with views and comments, just what was needed to be invited to the program. On top of that, his format of commentary gameplays mixed with humor was something new to the platform, making it much more appealing. "Hi, Andy? Are you there?" said Pippa on the other end of the phone. "Oh, yeah. Sorry." "Hi," said Andrew, snapping back to reality. He had forgotten for a moment that he was on a call. "What's up? You seem distracted," asked Pippa, lying on her bed with a relaxed expression, though a slight smile hinted at her excitement to hear Andrew's voice. "It's because..." Andrew began explaining the YouTube Partner program to Pippa. "That's amazing, Andy," Pippa said with genuine enthusiasm after hearing the good news. She already knew Andrew was a YouTuber. She'd discovered it when he nervously showed her his channel for the first time. From that moment on, she had supported him in every way possible. Not only did she subscribe with her own account, but also with those of her entire family. She watched every video he uploaded and never failed to leave positive and encouraging comments. "You're finally going to be able to monetize your videos. It's about time." "Those idiots took way too long," Pippa added, with a touch of indignation in her voice. "Hey? What happened to the refined language? It's strange to hear you insulting someone, miss," Andrew replied in a playful tone. Although Pippa was usually very composed, a few choice words would slip out when she was truly passionate about something, like a football game, only Andrew's games, or an academic frustration, which was rare for her. Deep down, Andrew found this spontaneous side of her quite charming. "So what? Are you going to snitch to my mom?" Pippa shot back, her tone playful and defiant. That could be an option. I don't think Leanne would be thrilled to find out her cute, responsible daughter insults people," Andrew replied, pretending to weigh a moral dilemma. "Oh, cute? How cute?" Pippa asked as she absent-mindedly twirled a strand of her hair. At that moment, Josh, Pippa's brother, passed by the hallway. Glancing into her room, he noticed her sitting there, oblivious to everything, smiling in a way he had never seen before. His sister, always so serious and focused on her studies, now seemed like any other teenage girl, playing with her hair and completely lost in a conversation with her boyfriend. "Unbelievable," Josh muttered to himself, shaking his head and continuing down the hall, unable to believe what he had just witnessed. Meanwhile, Pippa and Andrew kept talking, unaware of how quickly time was passing. It was a rare sight for two people so structured and used to meticulously planning their day. Pippa, perfectionist and dedicated, had even her leisure hours scheduled in her planner. This conversation wasn't on the agenda, but she didn't care. As for Andrew, he had an almost obsessive discipline when it came to training and a well-organized routine to fit in everything he loved: playing video games, uploading videos to YouTube, hanging out with his friends, spending time with Pippa and chatting with her, and, of course, being with his family. When it came to his teammates, he already spent enough time with them during training sessions and at school, so he didn't hang out with them much outside of that. Instead, that time was reserved for Leonard, Howard, and now Pippa's group of friends. "Look at the time," said Pippa, glancing at the clock in her room. 30 minutes had passed, during which they'd only been flirting and chatting aimlessly. She had called Andrew to discuss something specific. "Oh, yeah," Andrew said as his eyes went back to the YouTube email. He had forgotten to open it. "Open the YouTube email. I have something to tell you after that," said Pippa. Andrew clicked on the email, and the following appeared. He read it out loud to Pippa. From YouTube Partner Program, Partners Upport at youtube.com. To maverickgammongytch@gmail.com. Subject, YouTube Partner Invitation. Hello Maverick 12. Congratulations! We've been following the growth of your channel and are impressed by the unique and entertaining content you're creating. Your channel, with its innovative style of commentary gameplays, has caught the attention of our community and meets the criteria to join the YouTube Partner Program. As a YouTube partner, you will be able to monetize your videos through ads, access exclusive tools to enhance your content, be part of a select community of growing content creators. To join the program, click the link below and follow the steps to complete your registration. Join the partner program now. We're excited to support you as you continue to grow on the platform. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Best regards. The YouTube team. How exciting! Said Pippa after Andrew finished reading the email to her. Yes, and on top of that, we've already adapted Flappy Bird to the Android SDK. Now we just need to upload it to the Google Android market, Andrew commented with a smile. Everything was going incredibly well. His team had qualified for the regional playoffs, and he'd secured the starting quarterback position. He'd started dating Pippa, his YouTube channel surpassed 10,000 subscribers, and now he'd been invited to the YouTube Partner Program. Andrew and Pippa had used Eclipse IDE to develop Flappy Bird, which took them 8 weeks to complete. At one point, they thought it would take 6 weeks, but they ended up behind schedule. Ever since they started dating, whenever Andrew went over to Pippa's house, neither of them got much coding done. Even though they took 2 extra weeks, they were still ahead of the rest of their classmates. They were the first to finish, and their game wasn't simple at all, far exceeding the professor's expectations, which earned them an excellent grade. In addition to being happy about the grade, Andrew felt a special sense of excitement. It wasn't just an academic project anymore. Now was the time to publish the game for everyone to download. The target was the Google Android market, the App Store Google had launched just a few months ago. They quickly ruled out the idea of uploading it to Apple's App Store since the language they had used to code the game, Java, wasn't compatible with iOS. If they wanted the game on the App Store, they'd have to rewrite it entirely in a language compatible with iOS like Objective-C or Swift. This would involve significant time and effort. They estimated it would take at least 8 weeks to make the transition because they weren't familiar with iOS programming languages and would have to learn from scratch. Before we upload it to the store, we need to register as developers on Google's platform. And for that, there's a small issue, we need to pay a $25 registration fee, said Pippa in a more serious tone. Well, that's not too much. I've saved up some money, Andrew replied. Me too, but that's not the tricky part. Since we're minors, an adult has to create the account. And since both of us are underage, it would have to be under one of our parents' names, Pippa said, having already researched everything. Well, that complicates things a bit, Andrew admitted. Who would be the parent listed as the account owner? This could cause some friction since it involved money. The person whose parent wasn't listed on the account would have to trust the other to distribute earnings fairly. The money will go to the bank account of the person who creates the account. But I don't really mind. If it's okay with you, just talk to your parents and that's it, said Pippa, not wanting to complicate things. She had made the video game for school in the first place and never thought about publishing it or making money. Plus, the creative idea was Andrew's, and she trusted him. She knew that if there were any profits, he wouldn't cheat her, nor would his parents, whom she knew to be very kind and fair people. Really? You're not worried? Andrew asked, slightly surprised. No, I trust you. It was your original idea, your idea to publish it and make money, so the game is more yours than mine, said Pippa. The game belongs to both of us. Without you, I couldn't have done even half of it. It's our baby, Andrew replied. Oh, our baby? What, am I the game's mother now? Pippa asked, laughing lightly. Well, if you think about it, you made it grow. I just conceived it. Andrew said with a strange smile. While he had helped with coding, Pippa had done more in that aspect, with her contributing about 60% and him 40%. Pippa couldn't help but burst out laughing at the idea of Andrew conceiving the friendly pixelated bird. It was such a strange thought, and even stranger that they were having this kind of conversation. When Pippa finally stopped laughing, a laugh that Andrew found utterly charming, he continued, "At most, we could write up an agreement or something like that and make sure your parents are in the loop." "Sure, that works. Speaking of which, my parents are inviting you to dinner tomorrow after the game to celebrate your team making the playoffs. That's actually why I called. Want to come?" Pippa asked in an expectant tone. "Of course. Although, my family also planned a celebratory dinner," said Andrew, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Oh, wait. Why don't we bring everyone together? We can talk about Flappy Bird with our parents and figure out how to set up the account." "Two birds with one stone," Andrew suggested. "Always thinking about efficiency, hey? I like the idea. I'll tell my parents, you tell your family, and we'll stay in touch," said Pippa. Neither of them hung up right away, both reluctant to end the call first. After they finally did, Andrew left his room to talk to his parents. They needed to get organized since they only had until tomorrow to plan the dinner. The best possible scenario had just fallen into place. After the game, he would confess his feelings to Pippa, they'd officially become a couple, and their families would have dinner together, getting to know each other in a much more formal way. Chapter 45, 3 Big News. After finishing his conversation with Pippa, Andrew enthusiastically left his room. "Dad!" Andrew called out as he quickly made his way to the living room. In the living room, he found Kem playing with Lily in her stroller. "What's up, son? Why so excited?" Cameron asked, shifting his gaze from Lily to Andrew. "Great news!" Andrew responded. "Well, 2, or 3. He added with a confused expression. "Oh, this sounds big." "Start with the least important one," Cameron said, now giving his full attention to what his son was about to say. Least important," Andrew murmured as he quickly ranked the news from least to most significant. "Okay, YouTube invited me to their program, and I'll be able to monetize my videos," Andrew replied, and Cam, who had been kneeling to play with Lily, jumped up in excitement. "That's amazing! You just hit 10,000 subscribers, and now you're invited to YouTube's program," Cam said with a joy that outshone Andrew's. "Yeah, we just need to complete a form and link the Google AdSense account to my channel," Andrew said with a smile. Soon, he would have money to buy lots of things. Even though his family was financially stable, he wasn't a spoiled child who could buy everything he wanted. Now, with a new sister, expenses were divided, so earning his own money wouldn't hurt. He could buy things for himself, for his sister, and even help around the house. Kem and Mitchell were aware of the videos Andrew had been uploading. Andrew told them when he hit his first major milestone, 1,000 subscribers. Telling them earlier would have been a bit embarrassing since his channel wasn't getting much traction back then. About a month ago, as Andrew saw his channel growing day by day, he decided to talk to Mitch and Kem about monetization. It was highly likely he'd be invited to join the YouTube Partner Program. It was a long conversation, as it was hard for both parents to believe that uploading gaming videos to the internet could make money. The way to earn money was through Google AdSense, Google's advertising platform. By being part of the YouTube Partner Program, you could place ads on all the videos you publish. These ads generate revenue based on the views and clicks they receive. The more views a channel has, the more money it can earn. By the end of the conversation, Mitchell and Cameron finally understood that what Andrew was explaining was entirely possible, especially considering it involved a multi-billion-dollar company like Google. Mitchell created a Google AdSense account since Andrew, being a minor, couldn't do it himself. Now, Andrew's YouTube channel would have the option to link the AdSense account and start generating income, which would go into the bank account Mitchell registered with Google AdSense. "Let's fill out that form and link the account," Cameron exclaimed enthusiastically, ready to head to Andrew's room and complete everything as soon as possible. "We need to wait for Father, since it's his account," Andrew commented as he sat on the couch. "I have the password," Kem said with a small smile. He knew where Mitchell kept all the important information. "We can't. Father will get mad if we leave him out and do it on our own," Andrew said, shaking his head slightly. "You're right. We don't want him scowling through dinner," Cameron agreed, knowing full well that Mitchell didn't like being excluded from these kinds of things. He might even complain about the fact that Andrew hadn't waited to tell both of them at the same time. Well, tell me the other two pieces of news. If YouTube was the least important, I can't even imagine how important the other two will be, Kim said, his eyes shining with excitement and his tone making it clear he was eager to hear everything right away. Father will be here in a few minutes. We should wait for him, or he'll also get upset because I told you everything first, Andrew said, glancing at the clock. Oh, right, Kim said, making an exaggerated grimace as he crossed his arms. He knew exactly what Andrew meant. Mitchell always complained about being the last to find out about important news because he worked. I don't want another monologue about how unfair it is not to be the first to know things, Kim added. The two of them sat on the couch, staring at the clock in silence. The only sounds breaking the quiet were the rhythmic ticking of the second hand and the soft noises of Lily playing with a rattle in her stroller. It was only a few seconds before Cameron began to fidget in his seat, unable to contain himself. Oh, enough. Just tell me now. I promise I won't tell him you told me first, he pleaded, clasping his hands together as if begging. All right, waiting is boring anyway. Just act surprised when I tell him and pretend you're hearing it for the first time, Andrew said, and Kim nodded repeatedly. Then Andrew began sharing the two pieces of news. The second most important was about the Friday dinner after the final game of the regular season, a dinner with Pippa, her parents, and her brother. This was a big deal, as it would be the first time his parents would talk in such an intimate setting as a dinner with Pippa's family. Up until that point, Mitch and Kim had only exchanged a few words with Pippa's parents during games, but this was entirely different. Cameron was visibly excited upon hearing the news. That's amazing. This means your relationship with Pippa is going wonderfully, he exclaimed, clasping his hands in front of his chest melodramatically. Yes, it's important, but it's not like I'm proposing to her, Andrew replied. Kim seemed more enthusiastic about the dinner than he was. My little boy is growing up so fast, Kim said, ignoring Andrew. Andrew couldn't help but roll his eyes. It's just a special dinner, sure, but it's not that big of a deal, he said. Kim didn't listen and continued, lost in his own monologue. You've always been such a focused kid, always training, playing video games, or reading those comics. Mitch and I were starting to think we'd have to set you up on blind dates in high school. Don't make this a big deal, Andrew thought but said nothing. During his middle school years, Andrew had never shown interest in romance, something that was common for many boys his age. But his lack of interest wasn't just typical youthful disinterest. Andrew had transmigrated, and in his previous life, he had been 16 years old before his tragic end. This made it impossible for him to feel attracted to anyone between the ages of 11 and 14, keeping him away from any kind of romantic relationship. Even now, in his first year of high school, romance wasn't a priority for him. However, everything changed when he met Pippa. From the very first moment, Andrew was captivated not just by her looks, but also by her intelligence and charisma. Pippa was brilliant, with a quick mind and a unique personality that constantly challenged and inspired him. She fascinated him in a way he had only experienced once in his previous life. Over time, as he spent more time with Pippa, Andrew realized that being around her was not only pleasant but also exciting. For the first time since his transmigration, he seriously considered that romance could be something meaningful and valuable. All right, what's the last and most important news? Kim asked after calming down and stopping his rambling. Andrew stared at him, his eyes reflecting hesitation. He knew this news was going to trigger an even more exaggerated reaction than the last one. Kim had already rambled and dramatized enough about the dinner, telling him this would be like lighting a rocket. Well, I'm not sure if I should say it, Andrew said, debating whether to share it or not. What? Of course, you should say it. Come on, Andy, don't leave me hanging. What could possibly be more exciting than meeting your in-laws at dinner or the YouTube thing? Kim pressed. It's just. I'm worried you'll get too excited. You know, like earlier. Andrew said, scratching the back of his neck. Me? Get too excited? Kim exclaimed indignantly, raising his tone and placing a hand on his chest. Here we go. Andrew thought. All right, I'll tell you. Just don't overreact, okay? Andrew said, cutting him off before he could continue complaining. Kim nodded solemnly, raising his hand as if taking an oath in court. I promise, son. Tucker's word. Andrew took a deep breath and said, after the game, I'm planning to, officially confessed to Pippa, in front of everyone. I want it to be special, something hard to forget. There was a moment of absolute silence in the room. Kem blinked a couple of times, processing what he'd just heard. Then, as Andrew feared, he exploded. What? A public confession? Andrew, this is huge. This is straight out of a romantic movie. The popular quarterback confessing to the smartest, prettiest girl in school. Pippa is going to be the envy of every girl. Kem shouted, jumping out of his seat and grabbing his head with both hands. Andrew face-palmed, clearly regretting saying anything. I knew I shouldn't have told you. He muttered under his breath. Lily paused her games for a moment and glanced at Cam. I'm so proud of you, son. Do you already have everything planned? A speech? Flowers? Balloons? An epic soundtrack? Oh, we need to plan this together. We don't have much time. Cam continued, pacing around the room in excitement. Andrew raised his hands, trying to calm him down. Dad, it's not a spectacle. It's just a simple confession after the game. Something from the heart, not a Broadway production. But still, it's your first big declaration of love. Can I at least be nearby to record it? What if we use the good camera? Cam asked, his eyes sparkling as he looked at Andrew. Fine, record it if you want. But just that, Andrew agreed, preferring this over turning his confession into a spectacle with flowers, balloons, or an epic soundtrack. I promise, I'll just record it, and Mitch will take photos. Pippa is so lucky to have you, Cam said, looking at his son with a proud smile. To Cam, teenagers of this generation weren't romantic at all. Most had quick, fleeting relationships without the special touch of grand gestures or memorable moments. An easy example was Haley. In the past 2 months, she had broken up and gotten back together with Dylan 3 times. They were currently separated, but everyone was wondering when they'd get back together again. Cam kept asking about the confession, how Andrew planned to do it, if he had a speech, and countless other questions. Luckily for Andrew, Mitchell arrived, and it was time to share the 3 pieces of news with him and then link the Google AdSense account. When Andrew told Mitchell the news, everything started smoothly. The first announcement about YouTube was met with genuine surprise from Mitchell, and while Cam was visibly excited, he managed to keep a believable performance. However, when the dinner with Pippa's parents was mentioned, Mitchell began to grow suspicious. Cam's reaction was too measured, lacking the enthusiasm he would normally show for something like this, raising the first doubts. Finally, when Andrew revealed the third piece of news, his plan to formally ask Pippa to be his girlfriend, Mitchell's suspicions were confirmed. Cam, who would have normally burst with excitement, tried to feign a more restrained happiness, but it was so forced that Mitchell immediately knew he had already heard it. Mitchell decided not to show any annoyance, as these were very good news from his son. Then he and Andrew went to the computer to complete the YouTube partner form and link the Google AdSense account, while Cam took care of Lily. Chapter 46, Regina George. I'll go to the restroom. Get us a table, Andrew said as he walked through the hallways with Leonard and Howard on their way to the cafeteria. All right, Leonard and Howard replied in unison as Andrew hurried off to the restroom, having held in the urge to pee for over 15 minutes. Today was game day. It was noon, and there were about 3 hours left before classes ended. Andrew had to head to the final practice soon. Phew, a brief break, Leonard sighed once Andrew was out of sight. What do you mean? Howard asked, not understanding what Leonard was referring to. Don't you feel all the stares and whispers we get when we walk around with Andrew? Leonard replied, lowering his voice slightly as his eyes darted nervously around. Of course I do, and it's great, isn't it? We've climbed the social ladder. We're not just faceless nerds anymore, Howard said with a confident grin, adopting an exaggeratedly carefree posture as he walked as if he were the center of attention, attempting, unsuccessfully, to mimic Peter Parker's style from Spider-Man 3. We're exactly the same as before. Leonard thought. And why does it bother you? Stop being such a pussy. It's just a few stares and whispers, Howard added, frowning at Leonard's discomfort. I know, but I'm not used to this much attention. It makes me nervous, Leonard admitted, looking down. Just have a little more confidence in yourself, for God's sake. I haven't gotten a single wedge since starting high school. Isn't that great? Howard said. Leonard nodded slightly. That was true. Nobody bothered them anymore, and it was a radical change from middle school, where bullies always seem to target them. And if anyone tries to mess with you, Howard continued, raising a finger as if revealing an infallible secret, just mention Andrew. Trust me, it's like magic. They back off instantly. Leonard frowned, confused. Does Andrew know you are using his name for that? Of course he does. He even told me I could threaten them by saying he'd tackle them, Howard said with a small smile. He's a great friend. Leonard murmured with a shy smile. Leonard had grown up in a home that could only be described as functional on the surface. His mother, a pragmatic and distant woman, had adopted a parenting philosophy that felt more like a scientific experiment than an act of love. She rarely offered words of encouragement. Instead, she analyzed him, questioned his decisions, and imposed expectations that seemed designed to highlight his flaws rather than his strengths. Every mistake was a personal failure, every success was simply expected of him. The result was a shy boy with low self-esteem and a constant feeling that he would never be enough for anyone, not even himself. However, Andrew's arrival in his life had been a surprise. Despite being everything Leonard wasn't, Andrew never made him feel inferior. It's just a few stairs, nothing more, Leonard encouraged himself, straightening his back a little and lifting his gaze. Andrew walked out of the restroom shaking his hands. Damn it, put some toilet paper in there, he thought. At that very moment, a delicate hand suddenly grabbed his wrist, forcing him to turn and see the girl responsible for it. Regina George. Andrew thought, frowning as he recognized the blonde who had grabbed his wrist. Regina had long, straight blonde hair, fair skin, blue eyes, and a slightly upturned nose. Her outfit consisted of a pink cardigan over a white shirt, a light pink miniskirt, and fuchsia heels. She was the very image of the most popular girl in school and she knew it. She was the head cheerleader and the queen of the school's social hierarchy. She had achieved this status while still in 11th grade, though Andrew didn't see this as much of an accomplishment most teenagers did. Girls wanted to be her, and boys, well, most of them couldn't resist her beauty and poisonous charisma. We need to talk, Regina said in a tone that sounded more like a command. Andrew, however, was unimpressed by her reputation. He couldn't care less about high school popularity contests. He was only popular because he was good at football. As for Regina, he barely knew her, except for a previous encounter where she had tried to intimidate him after learning about his hobbies. Some time ago, Andrew had been spotted by Veronica at the mall while hanging out with Leonard and Howard. One of the girls with Veronica that day was Regina, who had seen Andrew with two nerds and carrying comic books in his hands. Upon discovering this, Regina had tried to use it to her advantage, attempting to manipulate Andrew into becoming her lackey. She had threatened to spread rumors if he didn't comply with her ridiculous demands. But Andrew had done the unthinkable, he completely ignored her. He had already decided he didn't care if his hobbies were exposed. If someone tried to mock him for it, he'd either tackle them or just tune them out. This immediately put him on Regina's blacklist or perhaps her list of interests. No, we don't need to talk, Andrew replied curtly. He freed himself from her grip with a firm, effortless motion. Regina blinked, momentarily stunned. She wasn't used to being ignored, much less rejected in such a way. However, she quickly regained her composure. That indifference, that resistance, it was precisely what made Andrew different, and far more interesting to her. Wait, Regina called out as Andrew walked away. Andrew didn't even turn his head. Hey, stop, please, she insisted, this time in a much less aggressive tone, grabbing the fabric of his jacket. Did she just say please, he thought, mildly surprised, not expecting the queen bee to know that word. Regina took a deep breath, clearly uncomfortable. It wasn't common for her to be in a position where she needed to beg for anything. Can we talk? Regina asked in a softer tone, glancing around to make sure no one was watching them. Make it quick, Andrew said, slightly intrigued. But not here. We need privacy, Regina said. Andrew frowned. The fact that Regina was being serious and even seemed scared puzzled him. She was known for her confidence and intimidating aura. He nodded, and soon they entered an empty classroom at the end of the hallway. Once inside, Regina closed the door behind them, making sure no one was nearby. All right, what do you want to talk about? Andrew said, looking at her with distrust. Regina hesitated for a moment, something unusual for someone with her personality. Her eyes, usually sharp and calculating, now reflected a mix of shame and worry. I'm being blackmailed, she finally admitted, the words coming out with difficulty, as though she hated having to say them. So? Andrew asked without a hint of empathy in his tone, clearly uninterested in gossip. Regina pressed her lips together, clearly uncomfortable with Andrew's indifference, but she decided to continue. I need your help, she said, the words almost seeming to burn her throat as she forced them out. Andrew let out a small laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. My help? You need my help? What an irony. Not long ago, you tried to blackmail me over my hobbies, and now you want my help? Are you joking? It was just a harmless threat. I never spread the rumors, Regina said, as if that were some noble gesture on her part. Andrew raised an eyebrow and said, Really? Because I remember hearing rumors and whispers about me. Something about the backup quarterback being a pathetic virgin, or a nerd whose only girlfriend dumped him for being a loser. At that time, the game where Andrew came off the bench, led an epic comeback, and secured his undisputed starting position on the team hadn't happened yet. Now, Andrew was the starting quarterback, the MVP of every game played and won, leading the school to the regional playoffs. Nobody dared to whisper those rumors near him anymore, but when he was a backup, it was a different story. Many mocked or pointed fingers at him. That wasn't me. It was your ex-girlfriend, Veronica. And she's also the one blackmailing me, Regina replied. Veronica. Andrew repeated, his tone more neutral than surprised. It wasn't entirely shocking that the shallow girl who had dumped him upon realizing his popularity wasn't rising and he was just a benchwarmer might be capable of spreading those rumors. Regina studied him carefully, waiting for a flicker of anger or a spark of resentment, but she saw none of that. I thought you'd be more hurt, considering she was your first girlfriend, or so the rumors say, Regina remarked. Andrew ignored the comment and asked, with a bit more curiosity than he wanted to admit, how is Veronica blackmailing you? Who would have thought? Veronica, the girl who once seemed kind and approachable, turned out to be a cunning and manipulative snake. Did high school transform her into that, or had she always been that way, hiding her true nature behind a friendly facade? Good thing Haley distanced herself from her, Andrew thought. After joining the cheerleading squad, Veronica had started spending more time with them and had stopped hanging out with Haley. His cousin, while she did care about popularity, wasn't malicious. She wasn't the type to spread rumors to tear others down and crown herself queen of the school. Seeing that Andrew was willing to listen, Regina took a step closer. Her haughty expression softened for a moment, revealing a flicker of insecurity. She has a photo of me. A photo of me in my underwear, Regina confessed in a lower tone. Chapter 47, Lend a Hand. She has a photo of me. A photo of me in my underwear, Regina confessed in a lower tone. The room fell silent. They stared at each other. Regina watched him intently, trying to read something on his face, malicious amusement, genuine surprise, maybe even a spark of glee. But all she found was calm. Don't laugh, she warned quickly, even though Andrew had shown no intention of doing so. I'm not laughing, Andrew replied with a slight shrug. But seriously? You, the self-proclaimed queen bee, falling for something so basic, he added. It wasn't basic. And I don't self-proclaim myself as the queen bee. Regina defended herself, a flash of indignation in her voice. Whatever. How did that picture end up in Veronica's hands? Andrew asked. Regina ran a hand through her hair, clearly uncomfortable. It was a mistake. Well, more like a trap, she admitted, averting her gaze. I was chatting with Alan, Regina began, her voice dropping slightly. Alan, the senior wide receiver? Andrew asked, more curious than concerned. Yeah, him, Regina nodded. Andrew crossed his arms, letting his mind assess the situation. Alan was friends with Jason. But unlike his friend, Alan actually had some talent. Of course, calling it talent was generous, considering the level they played at. Talent for someone playing at Palisades School, Andrew thought. Their school was in the 5th division, a place where standards were intermediates. You couldn't compare a Division 1 or 2 team with a 5th Division 1. Alan was good in that context, but Andrew saw him as someone who would never be able to play at a 1st, 2nd, or even 3rd division school. Andrew knew the receiver was close to his limit. With Alan in his senior year, his chances of improving were minimal. He lacked the discipline and passion needed to stand out. For someone like Andrew, whose focus, talent, and ambition were light years ahead, Alan was just an average player. Andrew's arrogance, though evident, wasn't baseless. After all, in his past life, he had led his team to the state championship final in the highest division of all. In this new life, his skills as a player had reached an entirely new level. That's why he had received offers from multiple schools of the highest divisions. He could have easily transferred, but he chose to stay at Palisades. He wanted a challenge. He wanted to prove that he could transform a 5th division team and take it to a level no one thought possible. Repeating the same path as in his past life would be boring, and if he managed to achieve his goal here, he would attract far more attention from college scouts and the world in general, as the feat was significantly more difficult. I thought Alan was really interested in me. But what I didn't know was that I was actually talking to Veronica the whole time, Regina continued, her voice laced with frustration and embarrassment. You seriously didn't realize? Alan isn't exactly the most poetic guy, Andrew said, looking at her in disbelief. The manipulative queen bee, so blind, for love? Regina huffed, visibly annoyed. I know. You don't have to rub it in. Veronica knew exactly what to say. She pretended to be him, and I fell for it. And now she has that photo of me. Blackmailing someone with an intimate photo. You really hit a new low, Veronica, Andrew thought. What does she want in return? Andrew asked. That bitch wants my position as cheer captain and for me to be her subordinate, Regina replied, her brows furrowed, filled with anger toward Veronica. Will you help me? Regina asked. And you expect me to believe all this just because you say so? You're as manipulative as Veronica if not more, Andrew said. The story sounded believable, but he preferred to stay out of these annoying affairs. He was no longer the guy who cared about sparing other people's feelings. I'm not making anything up. It's the truth, Regina said, offended. Andrew raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Then prove it. Show me the conversation. Regina's face turned red immediately, something completely unusual for someone like her. What? No way I'm showing you the photo. Are you some kind of pervert or what? I'm not letting you enjoy that. She said, stepping back as if facing a predator. Is this how you ask for help? Andrew thought, sighing internally. Then I won't believe a single word. I'm not interested in getting involved in your drama without proof, Andrew said with a shrug. He turned around, ready to walk away, but Regina, visibly frustrated, stopped him. All right. I'll show you, but only so you see that I'm not lying. Don't you dare say anything or make a comment, got it? She said as she pulled out her phone and searched for the conversation. After a few seconds, she handed the phone to Andrew. Andrew began scrolling through the messages, his eyes moving quickly over the text exchange between Regina and Alan, though in reality, it was Veronica using his phone. Eventually, he reached the photo. She wasn't lying, he thought. Regina watched him intently, searching for any change in his expression, perhaps surprise, discomfort, or even lust, but to her frustration, there was nothing. Andrew's gaze remained calm and curious. This irritated her more than she expected. That's it? You have nothing to say? Regina asked, both annoyed and confused. Andrew shifted his eyes from the phone to her and handed it back with a calmness that only made her angrier. What were you expecting? It's just a picture in a bra. It's not that big of a deal. Idiot. How can you be so cold? You see the most beautiful girl in school in a bra and don't react? Are you gay? Regina asked, gripping her phone tightly. She couldn't accept that Andrew felt no attraction to her body, one of the things she prided herself on. Most beautiful? Pippa is prettier. And no, I'm not gay, Andrew said almost lazily, unwilling to have this conversation. Your life won't be ruined just because someone sees a picture like that. There are worse things, he added. So? Are you going to help me or not? Regina asked, dropping the previous topic. Andrew took a few seconds to answer. He remembered how his kindness and his need to care for others' feelings had led him to date Veronica, a mistake that had only harmed him. He had decided to stop being the nice guy who always put others first. No, he finally replied. What? Why not? Regina asked. Karma. You're no saint, and I'm sure you've spread rumors to hurt other people. Maybe you're not as extreme as Veronica, but that doesn't change what you've done, Andrew said. You're just going to watch my life get ruined and let me be humiliated. Don't you have any principles? Regina asked, furious and shocked by his refusal. Do what Veronica wants, and your picture won't spread. As for losing your spot as cheer captain, you reap what you sow, Andrew said, turning on his heels and heading for the door. Regina was left alone, motionless, with Andrew's words echoing in her mind. Her last hope had vanished. She had thought Andrew was a good guy, that his strong principles would make him help her without hesitation. Was I really so naive to think someone would give me a hand? Regina thought as her breathing became unsteady and a hollow feeling settled in her chest. The friends she had were only there because of her popularity. She couldn't rely on them for this. She was alone. Regina gripped her phone tightly, staring at the screen without really seeing it. Tears began to well up in her eyes. A sob escaped her lips, breaking the silence of the empty classroom. What terrified her the most wasn't losing her spot as cheer captain or becoming subordinate to Veronica. What truly shattered her was the thought of that photo spreading, of everyone at school seeing it. Even if she did what Andrew suggested and gave in to Veronica's demands, she knew that Witch would still spread the photo once she had secured the captain's position. That would be the next step in solidifying her rise as the most popular girl while branding Regina as nothing more than a pathetic slut who sent lingerie pictures. Suddenly, the classroom door opened again. Regina flinched, quickly lifting her head, tears still staining her face. She saw Andrew standing in the doorway, watching her with a neutral expression. "What are you doing here?" Regina asked, wiping her tears and trying to sound strong. "I was outside, listening," Andrew replied with a sigh. "Are you here to mock me?" Regina snapped defensively. "Don't accuse me so quickly." "I just changed my mind," Andrew said. "What? Seriously? Why?" Regina asked, surprised, a flicker of hope returning. "The reason is mine to keep." "Now tell me, do you think the photo is only on Alan's phone?" Andrew asked. "I suppose so. The conversation was just between his phone and mine, and I never sent it to anyone else." "Why do you ask?" Regina said, confused. Andrew let out a small huff, as if debating whether to explain something obvious or save himself the trouble. "Well, it's 2008. Teenagers here don't back up files or store things in the cloud. Least of all Veronica, who probably only knows the basics of modern tech," Andrew thought. Most likely, the photo was only on Alan and Regina's phones. At most, Veronica might have sent it to herself to make sure she had a copy. Andrew needed to confirm that as well. "We'll delete the photo from Alan's phone, and while we're at it, I'll check if Veronica sent it to herself. If she doesn't have any copies, problem solved," Andrew said as if it weren't a big deal. "Why would you go that far?" Regina asked, narrowing her eyes at him. She wanted his help, but she hadn't expected him to go as far as getting Alan and Veronica's phones just to erase the picture. She had assumed he would just talk to Alan, who was surely aware of the situation, and ask him to delete it. After all, as team captain, Andrew had the most influence in the locker room. Andrew watched her for a moment before answering, his expression unchanged. "I'm just helping you get rid of the photos. Do you want my help or not?" Regina didn't say anything at first, but after a heavy sigh, she muttered, "Fine, thanks." "What was that?" "I didn't hear you," Andrew asked, feigning innocence. Regina pressed her lips together, visibly exasperated but also feeling a small sense of relief that Andrew had actually agreed to help. "Thanks," she repeated louder, her tone a mix of irritation and genuine gratitude. "Much better. I'll handle it today. Wait for an update," Andrew said, turning to leave the classroom. Just as he was about to step out, he threw out one last comment. "Oh, by the way, red looks good on you." His tone was light and teasing, his own little revenge for the time Regina had tried to blackmail him. Andrew didn't turn around to see her reaction, but he was sure he had caught her off guard. Regina felt her face heat up instantly, shame washing over her. "Andrew!" she shouted, her voice a mix of anger and embarrassment. In the photo, she had been wearing a red bra. Andrew simply raised a hand in a careless wave as he walked away without looking back. His smirk widened when he heard her flustered yell. Regina, still red-faced, stared at the door where Andrew had disappeared. Her heart was pounding, though she wasn't sure if it was from embarrassment or something else. Was that flirting, she thought, confused. Andrew's casual attitude threw her off, and that frustrated her more than she was willing to admit. If Andrew knew what was going through Regina's head at that moment, he'd probably be banging his head against a wall. His intention had never been to flirt, not even close. It was just a bit of teasing, a small payback for her past blackmail attempt. Chapter 48, Andrew's Reputation. Kara Ward rushed down the school hallway, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of what she had just witnessed. Her brow was furrowed, and the mix of confusion and urgency was evident on her face. She had seen Andrew and Regina George enter an empty classroom. Why was her best friend's boyfriend with the queen bee, Regina George? Regina George was a name that commanded respect, or fear. With a reputation for being ruthless, manipulative, and short-tempered, no one dared to cross her. Kara had always avoided her whenever possible. And while curiosity gnawed at her, she didn't dare get too close to that classroom. The risk of being caught snooping and becoming Regina's next target was not something she was willing to take. As for Andrew, even though she had known him for 2 months because he was Pippa's boyfriend, she couldn't say they were particularly close. He had always been friendly to her, but at gatherings at Pip's house, he usually socialized more with Leonard, Howard, Zach, and, of course, Pippa. I have to get to the cafeteria and tell Pip, though it's probably nothing, Kara thought, a part of her trying to justify what she had seen. She saw Andrew as charismatic and, surprisingly, quite a geek based on the conversations he had with Leonard, Howard, and Zach. There was something intriguing about the way he could go from discussing football strategies with near-military precision to debating Marvel alternate universe theories or which was the best ship in Star Wars. His enthusiasm for those topics made him seem approachable and genuine, but no one at school dared to mock him for it. There was something about his presence that commanded respect. Maybe it was that peculiar mix of charisma and innate authority. Because, even though Andrew was a friendly and good-humored guy most of the time, everything changed once he stepped onto the football field. The moment his cleats hit the turf, he took on a seriousness and focus that didn't go unnoticed. He barely even smiled. Kara and everyone else had noticed this shift. In middle school, he had seemed more relaxed compared to now. Since the game where he came off the bench and led a comeback, he had become an undisputed starter, led the offense, and had been the MVP in every match. He even played defense when needed, and his superiority was obvious to everyone. That was why the seniors had no choice but to follow him without question. When she arrived at the cafeteria, her eyes immediately searched for Pippa. Her best friend was sitting at their usual table, laughing with Lauren and Zach. As for Connor, he had distanced himself from the group and was now hanging out with other guys. The only one who didn't know why was Pippa. Everyone else was aware that he felt uncomfortable seeing Pippa and Andrew together. "Everything okay, Kara? You look deep in thought," Pippa asked with a smile, watching her friend sit down across from her. Kara let out a sigh and, after a brief pause, decided not to keep what she had seen to herself. "I saw Andrew going into an empty classroom with Regina George," she said bluntly. The comment sparked immediate reactions from the group. Lauren, known for her straightforward personality, was the first to speak. "I knew it. That bitch who thinks she runs the school wasn't going to take long before setting her sights on Andrew," she said with clear disapproval, crossing her arms. "I don't think it's something to worry about." "We don't know the context," Pippa said calmly as she sipped her drink. She couldn't deny that the thought of Regina being alone with Andrew made her slightly uncomfortable, but her trust in him was stronger than a few doubts. She knew Andrew wasn't that kind of guy. Lauren raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "Really? Regina doesn't go into an empty classroom with someone just to talk about schoolwork. And definitely not with the star quarterback. Andrew isn't like other guys," Pippa replied firmly but without raising her voice. "Hey," Zach protested. Pippa knew that Andrew had always been popular because of sports, but he never had a reputation for dating around or flirting with every girl. In fact, she was his first girlfriend. Even though everyone thought it was Veronica, she knew that relationship had been fake. Andrew had told her the truth about his relationship with Veronica. "Well, still, Regina is manipulative and older. I told you both should make it official and say it explicitly. Why do you think marriages exist?" Lauren said. "When he gets here, I'll ask him and satisfy your curiosity, you gossips," Pippa said, rolling her eyes and changing the subject. Andrew, for his part, walked down the hallway unaware that Kara had seen him enter the classroom with Regina. When he arrived at the cafeteria, he noticed several eyes on him but paid little attention to it. His gaze searched for Howard and Leonard. He found them at a secluded table in the corner of the cafeteria, both sitting alone with their lunches, chatting. He quickly approached them. He still hadn't told them that he had been invited to the YouTube partner program. He hadn't been able to tell them during the first few hours of class, nor had he sent a text, since he wanted to see their reactions live and in person. "Why aren't you sitting with Pippa and the others?" Andrew asked, sitting across from them. Howard paused his conversation with Leonard and looked at Andrew. "I don't know. They were already at that table when we got here, so we just sat here," he replied, scratching his head. "Yeah, we didn't want to interrupt anything," Leonard added, nodding in agreement. The truth was that, even though they had known Pippa, Lauren, and Zach for 2 months, they still didn't feel comfortable enough to casually sit with them in the cafeteria. There was an invisible barrier they hadn't been able to cross yet, a mix of shyness and lack of self-confidence. However, with Andrew, it was different. Even though they had known him for about the same amount of time, they were close and considered him a true friend. This was largely because they shared the same hobbies, and Andrew had easily broken that barrier, inviting them to his house, playing online video games with them, and more. "Interrupt? Pippa doesn't bite, you know?" "Well, Lauren might try, but Zach would probably stop her," Andrew said, raising an eyebrow. "And what about turning Kara into your girlfriend?" Andrew asked, looking at Howard, who made a disgusted face. In 2 months, his progress had been almost non-existent. He sucked at flirting with girls, even though he knew their interests thanks to Facebook. Howard let out a quick laugh before looking at Andrew and swiftly changing the subject. "What about you? You went to the bathroom like 1,000 years ago. What were you doing? Handcrafting your own urine, or did you take a dump and run out of toilet paper?" "I didn't take a dump, and I didn't run out of toilet paper. Something came up, but it wasn't important," Andrew said. He wasn't going to tell them about the Regina situation. Howard would lose his mind if he found out about the photo. He'd probably keep asking Andrew to describe it in detail. Andrew quickly changed the subject and told them about the YouTube partner program. Howard and Leonard were surprised and happy about the news. Andrew then started convincing them to create their own YouTube gaming channel like his. That way, they'd have their own crew established. Both of them looked thoughtful but eventually agreed to do it. At first, they doubted their ability to talk alone during a game, but after playing plays with Andrew that he uploaded to YouTube, they gained confidence. There were many comments on the videos laughing at things Ringo or Wazowski said, which reassured them. While Andrew, Leonard, and Howard enthusiastically discussed what the first video on Howard and Leonard's channels should be, Pippa approached the table with Kara, Zach, and Lauren. "Hey, Andy. So nice of you to greet me," Pippa said with a slight smile, her tone sarcastic but without any real annoyance. Andrew turned his head and looked at Pippa. "Oh, I forgot." "Sorry," he said, scratching his head with an apologetic smile. He had been so excited to tell Leonard and Howard the YouTube news that he completely forgot to greet Pippa. "Hee, just kidding. You were probably telling them about YouTube, right?" Pippa said with a sweet smile, sitting next to Andrew and placing her tray on the table. "Yeah, you really know me," Andrew nodded, slightly surprised. "I'm observant. Besides, I'm guessing you were so caught up in this news that you forgot to prepare your lunch for today, right?" Pippa asked, and Andrew nodded. "That's why I made this for you." "Here," Pippa said, handing him a container from her tray, still unopened. Andrew took the container, and as soon as he saw what was inside, a smile formed on his face: white rice, vegetables, chicken, and 2 eggs. "Thanks. You saved me from having to eat cafeteria food," Andrew said happily as he opened the container. He also knew that Pippa had made the food herself, which made it even more special, very different from when Veronica had done the same, but the meal had been prepared by her house's chef. "It's nothing, what you eat is really simple to cook," Pippa said, waving her hand as if it wasn't a big deal. "Don't downplay it, you really saved me," Andrew said with a small smile, wrapping an arm around Pippa's waist and pulling her closer so they could eat together. Pippa blushed slightly at first but happily accepted being closer to Andrew. Howard, on the other hand, watched them with deep envy. One day, he thought as he took a bite of his sandwich. Lauren, Zach, and Kara also settled at the table with their lunches. "Next time, you guys come to our table. It's annoying to keep switching tables every day," Lauren grumbled, looking at Leonard and Howard. She knew that if those two had sat with them from the start, Andrew would have gone straight there. "We didn't see you," Howard justified himself, lying as he spoke with his mouth full. Lauren hummed, clearly not believing a word that came from Howard's food-filled mouth. And you, Leonard? Did you get it? She added, this time looking directly at Leonard, who flinched slightly under her intense gaze though, strangely, it wasn't an unpleasant feeling. Yeah, of course, Leonard said, holding Lauren's gaze for a few seconds before looking away. This is the second time I've told you this, and you keep giving me the same answer, but you don't do what you say. Are my words a joke to you? Lauren pressed on, starting a passive-aggressive argument with Leonard. As Andrew ate his delicious lunch, few would call the same simple meal every day delicious, he observed the exchange between Leonard and Lauren. Something caught Andrew's attention. Lauren seemed to be directing all her energy toward Leonard, completely ignoring Howard, even though he had made the same mistake of not sitting with them. Andrew narrowed his eyes, chewing his food slowly as he watched them both with curiosity. This is interesting, he thought to himself. It was like the saying that people who fight actually like each other, though in this case, Lauren was the only one fighting, since Leonard was far too passive. As Andrew watched this scene, wondering how he could help Leonard get a girlfriend, Pippa looked at him and casually asked, "Did you walk into an empty classroom with Regina George?" Chapter 49, Pippa the Reliable. Did you go into an empty classroom with Regina George? Pippa asked casually. Lauren, who had been arguing with Leonard, fell silent. All eyes at the table turned to Andrew, who almost choked on his drink at the sudden question. Cough. Did you see me go into the classroom? Andrew asked, taking a sip from his water bottle. That's why you took so long in the bathroom. You weren't taking a shit. Howard broke the silence, his mouth hanging open in shock upon hearing the news. Howard had had thousands of fantasies about Regina George. In his ranking of the hottest girls in school, she was number one. You assumed I was taking a shit? Andrew murmured, looking at Howard, who seemed the most affected by this revelation. So you're not denying it? Pippa said, eyeing Andrew, who for some reason felt a slight shiver down his spine. I went into an empty classroom with Regina George, Andrew confirmed. A flurry of sounds erupted at the table, gasps of surprise, exclamations, and even a faint whisper of "No way!" from Lauren. Andrew blinked, confused by their exaggerated reactions. Kara saw you and told me, Pippa commented, now more relieved. She saw Andrew's calm expression and confirmed it easily, so Pippa knew nothing had happened between them. The reason must be something else, and that piqued her curiosity. Andrew looked at Kara, who had remained silent until now but was now noticeably nervous. When she felt Andrew's gaze, she quickly looked away and started whistling badly, as if she didn't really know how. Andrew frowned, not because he was upset, but because Kara's behavior puzzled him. Why are you acting like I'm intimidating you? I'm not mad or anything. Of course not. It's not every day we see you alone in a classroom with Regina George, Kara said quickly, as if trying to justify herself. Then, what were you doing in an empty classroom with her? Pippa asked, her curiosity evident. It was clear that this was the question everyone wanted to ask. The group's eyes locked onto Andrew again, who took a long sip of water to buy time. I can only tell one person, Andrew said calmly and pointed at Pippa. You. Andrew would tell Pippa he wouldn't let some stupid misunderstanding cause a fight over Regina George. A smile formed on Pippa's face, knowing she'd be the only one to hear the gossip. The rest of the group exploded in outrage. Why only her? Howard demanded, his eyes wide, as if Andrew had just betrayed some sacred bro code. Yeah, why Pippa and not the rest of us? Kara added, crossing her arms in offense. She was the biggest gossip of them all. She had to know what Andrew and Regina talked about. She could sense something big. She no longer doubted Andrew's loyalty. It was obvious something else had happened. Only Pippa? You've got to be kidding me, Lauren muttered, clearly intrigued. Andrew raised a hand, signaling for silence. Let me explain, okay? It's nothing personal. Well, actually, it is personal, but not in the way you're all thinking. The others waited for him to continue. Howard, Andrew began, turning to him, I can't tell you because, if we're being honest, you'd become unbearable. If you knew what happened, you'd be asking for every little detail, probably even throwing in absurd questions. Sorry, but no. Howard opened his mouth to protest but then shut it, realizing Andrew was right. Zach, Andrew continued, looking at the boy who was sipping his soda, even though I trust that you wouldn't do it on purpose, I know you'd forget this is supposed to stay a secret. In any casual conversation, something like "Oh, Regina" and "Andrew in that classroom" would slip out of your mouth before you even realized it. Zack shrugged, accepting the point with resignation. "Kara," Andrew said, locking eyes with her, "we all know you love telling stories, even the ones you shouldn't. If I tell you, the whole school will find out eventually." Kara grimaced, clearly wanting to deny the accusation, but she couldn't stop a guilty smile from forming. "Lauren, I get the feeling Regina isn't your favorite person in the world. So if I tell you, you might end up using it against her," Andrew said. Lauren shrugged. She hated that bitch, and if she could do anything to ruin Regina's reputation, she absolutely would. So yeah, Andrew had a point. Finally, Andrew turned to Leonard. "And you, Leonard? I really do trust you. But I also know that if everyone pressured you enough, you'd end up caving," he explained. Leonard nodded slowly, acknowledging that Andrew wasn't wrong. He was too much of a people-pleaser, and social pressure always got to him. "But then, why Pippa?" Kara asked, frowning, voicing the question everyone else had in mind. "Yet. What does Pippa have that we don't?" Howard added, crossing his arms like he was personally offended. Andrew sighed, looking at them all with a mix of patience and exasperation. "First, she knows how to keep a secret. 2. She won't cave under pressure from any of you. 3. She's not absent-minded like Zack. 4. She's not a pervert like Howard." "Hey, that's uncalled for!" Howard exclaimed, looking offended, but no one at the table backed him up. "And lastly, she doesn't hate Regina like Lauren does," Andrew finished. "Well," Pippa said, standing up with a smile, "looks like I have a private conversation to attend to." Andrew stood up as well, leaving the rest of the group behind, still murmuring and speculating among themselves. As they walked away, Howard shouted, "If you could at least describe her scent, I'd be satisfied. Go get close to her yourself." Andrew shot back, shaking his head with a resigned smile before heading toward the exit with Pippa, who couldn't help but laugh at how weird Howard was. Almost everyone in the cafeteria turned to look at Andrew as he walked away with Pippa, as well as at Kara, Howard, and the rest of their table. Everyone was wondering what the starting quarterback was talking about. "What do you think they're talking about?" asked Steve, one of Andrew's friends and a current wide receiver on the football team. He was sitting at the athletes' table, the one Andrew used to sit at. This had left the guys on the team a bit confused. Andrew, who had always been the natural leader of the group, had started alternating between the two tables. Sometimes he sat with his teammates, and other times with Leonard and Howard. Bringing everyone together at one table wasn't an option since Leonard and Howard didn't feel comfortable around the athletes, so Andrew had to switch between them. He usually chose to eat with Leonard and Howard in the cafeteria. As his friendship with Pippa grew stronger, his usual cafeteria group became Kara, Lauren, Zack, Pippa, Leonard, and Howard. What Andrew appreciated most about Pippa was that she didn't mind going wherever he went. She didn't care if he sat with the football guys or with Leonard and Howard. Pippa just wanted to be with him. That flexibility was one less problem for Andrew. "He always eats with them now," Reggie commented in a displeased tone. "That's not true, it's 50-50. The day before yesterday, he had lunch with us," Kevin said, noticing the disapproving looks some of the guys at the table weren't even trying to hide. "But today is game day. The final game. He's our leader, he should be eating with us, not talking to those nerds," Reggie complained, and several in the group nodded in agreement. "Yeah, he should be here," Steve added, taking a big bite of his muffin. "Wow, relax. Why are you all jealous? Andrew already has a girlfriend." "It's Pippa," Kevin said with a slight smile, trying to lighten the mood and downplay the situation. He was the only one who truly understood what was going on. It didn't bother him that Andrew had lunch with another group one day and with them the next. He knew Andrew couldn't be in two places at once, and merging the tables wasn't the best idea. After all, the dynamic of each group was different. "I'm not jealous," Reggie said indignantly, giving the table a small thump. "I just think he shouldn't be getting distracted on game day, he should be with us," he added. "Distracted by having lunch with his girlfriend and other friends?" Kevin murmured, shaking his head at how illogical Reggie was being. Kevin took a moment before responding. Deep down, he knew Reggie was just jealous. After all, Andrew had been his lifelong friend, and they had always been together, but things had changed. Even so, Andrew still spent time with them. "You know what, Reggie?" Kevin said, staring straight at his friend. If it really bothers you that much, why don't you go and tell Andrew to his face? Andrew? To his face? Reggie stammered, his annoyed expression fading. Yes, said Kevin. I'll think about it, Reggie muttered, crossing his arms, though his tone sounded more like an excuse. Just as Kevin was about to say something else, their conversation was interrupted by Liam, the leader of the defense. Hey, Kevin. Make sure Andrew is at the restaurant before the game. You know, the tradition, Liam said, completely ignoring the previous discussion. Ever since Andrew became the starting quarterback, Liam had developed absolute respect for him. The entire team had improved, it wasn't just Andrew shining. Now, it truly felt like they were playing as a team, both offensively and defensively. Yeah, of course. Don't worry about it. Tradition is tradition, right? Kevin replied. The pre-game tradition was to meet up at the Williamsburg diner for a light meal and to talk football before their Friday night games. Besides being a sort of ritual, it was a way to stay focused and united as a team. Andrew had started this tradition back in middle school, and now in high school, several seniors like Liam had joined in and never missed it. Chapter 50, Regina's Gratitude. Andrew wasn't aware of the discussion at the football team's table. He was walking hand in hand with Pippa while telling her everything about Regina, not skipping a single detail. Whoa, who would have thought your ex would be so evil, Pippa commented after hearing about the blackmail Veronica was using against Regina. Yeah, and I accepted her stupid confession so she wouldn't get rejected in front of everyone, Andrew said with a grimace. Sometimes, being too nice isn't the best option, Pippa said. Yeah, that's why I'll stop trying to be a good guy to people I barely know, Andrew said, clenching his free fist, since his other hand was still holding Pippa's. Really? Right now, you're helping Regina George, someone who's more of a stranger than anything, and who not long ago tried to blackmail you, Pippa said, looking at him amused. Well, this is different. Veronica crossed the line, and I won't let her get what she wants after spreading those rumors about me and using me to boost her popularity, Andrew said. Oh, I didn't know you could be vengeful, Pippa said with a slight smile. Surprise. I can be, if the person deserves it. Once Regina's photos are deleted from Alan and Veronica's phones, I'll tell Regina to report her to the school administration. I'll back her up by saying I had to step in to make sure the photos were erased, Andrew said with a small, vengeful smile. That way, Veronica would be punished, though he didn't think she'd be expelled, since her parents had money, but at least she'd get reprimanded. As for why Regina hadn't reported Veronica yet, it was because she knew that if she did, her picture would be leaked instantly. It was unlikely Veronica would care about the punishment, which at most would be a few days of suspension. That's a good idea, though Regina might not want to report it once the photos are deleted. She'd have to tell the whole story to the adults, admitting that she sent a suggestive picture, and maybe she's embarrassed, Pippa said, looking thoughtful. Yeah, but it's just telling the story. I'll convince her. I'll also make Alan testify against Veronica, Andrew said. You're really confident about Alan. Do you think he'll delete the photos so easily and also testify against his new girlfriend? Pippa asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes. The power I have in the team will make him say exactly what I tell him. It'll be like taking candy from a baby, Andrew said with a small, confident smile. Ever since he became an undisputed starter, the team had won every game, achieving the best streak in the school's history and qualifying for the regional playoffs for the first time in over 10 years, with one game to spare. Because of this, Coach David adored Andrew. He saw him as his golden goose. The team had become unstoppable. Every game since the comeback had been a crushing victory. David, who had previously been more loyal to his nephew Jason, could no longer deny the truth. Andrew had transformed the team. And that was why he backed Andrew 100%. If Andrew said a player should be on the field, David supported him without hesitation. Andrew's power in the locker room was immense. Andrew knew this was only possible because he was in a 5th division school. In higher-level schools, a coach would never give so much power to a player, or maybe they would, if the player was extremely good, like him. However, Andrew wasn't the type of person to abuse his power for arbitrary decisions. Despite the influence he had, he tried to keep everything as meritocratic as possible. He didn't let personal likes or grudges affect his judgment. If it were about personal feelings, Andrew probably would have cut Alan from the team since he was friends with Jason, and Andrew's relationship with Jason wasn't exactly the best. For him, the only things that mattered were performance and teamwork, not old rivalries. He was a leader with a clear vision, only the best, the hardest workers, and those most committed to the team would earn their place on the field. And that was why everyone on the team respected him, including Alan and Jason's friends, because they knew it wasn't about favoritism, it was about results. Well, then it won't be too hard to give Regina a hand, Pippa commented, and Andrew nodded. That was another reason he decided to help her. It wouldn't be difficult to get Alan to delete the photo from his phone. Just a brief conversation. Oh, so you also saw her in her underwear? Pippa said, stopping and looking at Andrew. Andrew also looked at her and swallowed hard. He had told her that he checked the photo to make sure Regina wasn't lying. Are you mad? He asked. They stared into each other's eyes in silence until Pippa finally spoke. I can't deny that it bothers me that you saw Regina in her underwear, but it's not your fault. You had to make sure that manipulator wasn't lying to you. So no, I'm not mad. That's good. Thanks, Andrew said, relieved. Don't thank me. I'm not an irrational lunatic like Veronica, Pippa said with a smile. You're 100 times better than that, which no, 1,000, Andrew said, making Pippa laugh. They kept talking as they walked through the school hallways as if they were on a stroll until the bell rang, and they each headed to their classes. During the last break, Andrew called Alan to talk privately. To Andrew's surprise, Alan was very cooperative. The moment Andrew explained the issue at hand, he immediately agreed to delete Regina's photo from his phone. I thought he'd put up more resistance. Andrew thought with a puzzled expression. Even though he knew he had power within the team, he expected Alan to play dumb and refuse to admit that Veronica had blackmailed Regina and that he had been involved. But instead, Alan placed 100% of the blame on Veronica. He simply said he had lent her his phone and only had a vague idea of what she was doing. Before Alan deleted the photo, he called Regina so she could witness it being erased. Seeing Regina's number on Alan's phone, he dialed it, and she arrived shortly after. Regina looked at Alan with eyes full of fury but said nothing. She was genuinely surprised to see the photo being deleted. She hadn't expected Andrew to accomplish this all in the same day. Then, Andrew told Alan to get Veronica's phone so they could check her gallery and make sure she hadn't saved a copy of Regina's photo. Alan agreed instantly, saying he would snoop through Veronica's phone and delete the photo without hesitation if he found it. However, Regina didn't fully trust him, so she asked Andrew to make sure it was done. To make this happen, she, as the cheerleading captain, would keep Veronica busy during practice while Alan got her phone and met up with Andrew, who would witness Alan checking Veronica's gallery. The plan was simple, and they pulled it off easily. The only downside was that Andrew and Alan had to be absent from practice for about 15 minutes, but Coach David allowed it since Andrew always gave more than 100% in every training session and was the team's star player. As Andrew had suspected, Veronica hadn't saved a copy of the photo on her phone. It was good to confirm it, ensuring she couldn't blackmail Regina anymore. After cheerleading practice ended, Regina found out everything had gone smoothly and felt a huge sense of relief. Since she had gotten Andrew's number, she asked to meet up with him, as he had also finished his training. They met behind the gym, both still sweaty. As the cheerleading captain, Regina had gone through a grueling session of routines, jumps, and non-stop repetitions, leaving her drenched and her muscles burning. She observed Andrew closely, trying to hide her surprise. He was wearing a black compression shirt that fit like a second skin, outlining every well-defined muscle, almost unreal for someone his age. How can he be this muscular at his age? Regina thought, her eyes lingering for a moment on the sharp definition of his shoulders and the contour of his arms. The technical fabric of his shirt did nothing to conceal how sculpted his body was, and the sheen of sweat only made him look more appealing to her. Despite being in 9th grade, Andrew's physique rivaled that of veteran players. Andrew, for his part, couldn't help but glance at Regina, though he wouldn't admit it. For a brief moment, upon seeing Regina's toned legs after hours of exercise, Andrew found himself agreeing with everything Howard always said about her being a great beauty. He quickly pushed those thoughts aside. He wasn't like Howard, who only thought with his lower head. Besides, he already had a girlfriend. Regina didn't notice Andrew's fleeting glance at her legs because she was too busy staring at his chest. Everything's taken care of. The only thing left is reporting Veronica to the principal, Andrew said, breaking the silence. Regina seemed to jolt slightly, as if she had just snapped back to reality. Her gaze shifted from his torso, and she quickly lifted her head to meet his eyes, a faint blush creeping onto her cheeks. Yeah, you're right. I'll go to the principal on Monday, Regina said in a softer, more hesitant tone than Andrew had ever heard from her. Really? Andrew asked, both surprised and doubtful. Yes. Though. I'll have to tell him everything. Including the photo, Regina nodded. Andrew crossed his arms, trying to understand why she was agreeing so easily. He knew that for someone like Regina, admitting that Veronica had blackmailed her with a photo in her underwear wasn't a small thing. In fact, it was something that could seriously damage her reputation, something Regina protected almost religiously. He had expected to have to convince her more to get her to report Veronica. Are you sure? Andrew pressed. It's better to deal with a moment of embarrassment than to keep letting Veronica do whatever she wants, Regina said seriously, and Andrew stopped questioning her. Well, that's everything, then, Andrew said. As he stepped past Regina toward the exit, she moved to the side, blocking his path. Thanks, Andrew. Really, thanks, Regina said in a sincere, softer tone than usual. Andrew frowned slightly, a bit confused by the gratitude in her words. You're welcome, he said, eyeing her cautiously, as if unsure whether this was genuine or just one of her usual schemes. Don't look at me like that, idiot, Regina suddenly snapped, crossing her arms. I'm really grateful, that's all, she added. It wasn't a big deal, Andrew replied. Deleting the photos had been easy, he had done it the same day Regina asked, and it hadn't taken much time or effort at all. You don't get it. I thought my life was ruined. When I found out about the photos, I thought I'd never recover. And I couldn't talk to anyone else about this, Regina said quickly, her eyes locking onto his. And your friends? My friends? Please, all they would do is gossip until the whole school found out. They're not, well, they're not like you, Regina replied with a bitter laugh, shaking her head. Like me? Andrew repeated, raising an eyebrow. Yes, like you. Someone trustworthy, Regina said after a few seconds, debating whether to answer or not. Andrew remained silent. The last thing he expected today was for Regina to be complimenting him and thanking him. That's why I'll say it again. Thank you, Regina repeated, this time with a small smile that seemed to break through all her usual barriers. You're welcome, Andrew replied, this time with a smile, happy that the person he helped was actually grateful, unlike Veronica, although technically, she never knew he saved her from humiliation. Regina found herself looking at Andrew's smile longer than she intended. For a brief moment, something stirred in her chest, a strange sensation she couldn't quite identify. Her eyes remained fixed on him. Realizing she shouldn't stay silent for too long, she quickly looked away, feeling a slight warmth on her cheeks. She broke the silence with a nervous laugh. Well, on another note, the choreography we did with the girls is going to crush the rival cheer squad. So you better make sure to win today's game, she said, trying to regain her usual confident and haughty tone. I'm sure you will. And don't worry about us, we'll win without a doubt, Andrew said with a slight smile, walking away as Regina watched his back. Chapter 51, Intimidating Attitude. Are you recording? Andrew asked, a little impatient, looking at Howard, who was holding a camera. Leonard, standing beside him, was giving instructions that weren't very helpful. The last game of the regular season was about to begin. As for what Andrew wanted to record, it was his first video for his newly created second YouTube channel. He had spent a long time debating whether or not to start this new channel. In the end, he went through with it. His new YouTube channel bore his name, Andrew Pritchett Tucker. Here, he would upload content about his life as an athlete, training sessions, games, his daily routine, etc. But that wasn't all, there would also be room for other things: vlogs, funny videos with his friends if they happened naturally, anything that seemed fun and worth recording and editing. His first video would be the highlights of this final regular season game. His journey from high school would be documented, though he wouldn't record every single game, only the most important ones. This would also help scouts and college coaches notice him early if he managed to go viral. Plus, it would be a way to start building his personal brand. Come on, I should be warming up, Andrew urged. Hold on, be patient. This piece of junk is harder than I thought, Howard muttered, turning the selection wheel with exaggerated concentration. The camera he was holding was a Sony HDR SR11. Even though he was just as tech-savvy as Leonard and Andrew, his experience was mostly limited to video games, computers, and phones, not this kind of video camera. You have to put it in recording mode first. I think it's that button, Leonard said, pointing with his finger. I know, get your ugly finger out of my way, I can't see anything, Howard grumbled irritably, giving Leonard's hand a light slap to move it out of his sight. Leonard frowned slightly at having his finger called ugly. Who would have thought that you, a professional stalker, wouldn't be able to handle a video camera? I mean, this should be one of your main tools, Leonard commented with a smirk. Go to hell, Leonard, Howard shot back, unfazed, too focused on the camera to be truly annoyed. All right, less fighting and more recording, Andrew said with amusement. Or do I need to call an adult to help you? Even my dad knows how to use one of these. Shut up and say what you need to say. Okay, we're good now. Action! Howard said, pointing the camera at Andrew. Andrew took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a second before looking at the camera with a smile. Hey everyone, friends. Andrew began with a slightly uncertain greeting, unsure of how to address his viewers. Friends? I doubt some fat guy watching this on his computer in the middle of the night is your friend, Howard said with a smile. It's just a way of speaking, genius. I don't think that fat guy watching at 3 in the morning actually believes Andrew is his friend, Leonard added, looking at Howard as if he were an idiot. I know, but it's weird for someone you don't know to call you a friend, Howard tried to justify himself, shrugging. Andrew rolled his eyes. Welcome to the internet. Now do your job as a cameraman and stop talking. All right, take 2. Howard announced, refocusing the camera. Andrew took another deep breath. Hey, netizens. Netizens? What are you, my grandma? Leonard asked with a weird expression, a small smile starting to form on his face. Howard couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. I don't know. It was the first thing that came to mind, Andrew said, slightly frowning. Talking to a camera was way harder than recording a gameplay. Next thing you'll say is, greetings, cybernauts. Today I bring you a transmission from the network of networks, Leonard said, and Howard's laughter grew louder. All right, geniuses, then what should I say? Andrew asked. I don't know, it's your channel, Howard replied, trying to suppress his laughter. Take 3. Howard added. Hi, my name is Andrew Pritchett Tucker. This is the first video on this channel. I'm the quarterback for Palisades High School in the state of California. Andrew started with a smile, giving a brief summary of who he was and where he played. You'll see the final game of the regular season. We're facing Jefferson High School. If I'm not mistaken, they're 4th in the standings, we're 1st. The number 1 spot is pretty much secured for us. We'd have to lose by a blowout, and that's impossible, Andrew continued but suddenly paused. What happened? Leonard asked. Should I sound confident but friendly, or more humble? What do you think? Andrew asked. Just do it as yourself. Be yourself, Leonard replied. Even though it sounds kinda cliché, it's true. No need to overthink it, Howard agreed. Yeah, sure, be myself, Andrew huffed. Howard and Leonard exchanged glances, confused. They didn't quite get what he meant. Andrew was extremely competitive. His current abilities were far beyond what they were in his past life, and back then, he had been a starting quarterback at the most elite school, leading his team to the state championship final and winning the game in the last minute. Though, technically, he didn't become the state champion, since he died. Now he was facing a team of a much lower level, and although his team was in the same division, they had players like Reggie, Steve, Archie, Kevin, etc., who could easily play in higher divisions since Andrew himself had trained them from a young age. Adding himself to the mix with abilities far superior to his past life made the possibility of losing practically zero. Victory was carved in stone. If he said that outright in his video, he would sound absolutely arrogant and cocky. That could make people on YouTube feel apathetic toward him, and he didn't want that. It could even make scouts see it as part of his attitude that needed reforming or something along those lines. Well, whatever. Let's just finish this intro as soon as possible, Andrew finally said. He wouldn't openly show his competitiveness and confidence in crushing all the 5th division teams. He'd show that on the field. In the videos, he'd present a more moderate and enthusiastic attitude just as he naturally was. All right, take 3. Just as Howard was about to start recording again, the sound of multiple footsteps caught his attention, making him glance to the side. Leonard and Andrew did the same. Andrew immediately recognized the uniforms of the three guys approaching. They were from Jefferson High School. One of them was wearing the number 1 jersey, meaning he was likely their quarterback. The guy in the number 1 jersey stopped when he saw Andrew, his expression shifting as he recognized him. "You're Andrew Pritchett?" he asked, though his tone was more of a statement than a question. "The quarterback of the number 1 team, hey?" he added, scanning Andrew from head to toe with a challenging smile. "The number 1, of the 5th Division," Andrew muttered, his expression unreadable, though a hint of concealed disdain flickered in his eyes. One of the quarterback's teammates took a step closer, studying Andrew in an unfriendly way. "You're shorter than I expected," he said with a faint smirk. "That's normal. He's in 9th grade, unlike you," Leonard responded, standing up for Andrew. Meanwhile, Howard remained frozen in place, still recording everything with his camera. "What?" Howard thought, shocked that Leonard had spoken up so confidently against these textbook bullies. This was a major character development moment, he thought. "What the hell is this nerd even saying?" said the guy who had mocked Andrew's height earlier, this time glaring at Leonard with an unfriendly expression. "You've got some weird friends, Pritchett," the rival quarterback commented with a slight, disdainful laugh, glancing at Leonard and Howard. Andrew frowned, but before he could say anything, the idiot of a quarterback kept going. "I also heard you've got some strange parents. What's it like having 2 dads? You don't even know what it's like to have a normal family, do you?" the quarterback said, a mocking grin spreading across his face. The 2 guys beside him let out snickers, turning their eyes toward Andrew as if expecting some kind of reaction. Andrew's expression shifted drastically. A rare seriousness settled on his face as he stepped forward, locking eyes with the confident-looking guy in the number 1 jersey. "You talk like you're some big shot, but you're just a pathetic senior playing in the 5th Division, Andrew said, his tone dripping with disdain. "Your team is in 4th place, aren't you embarrassed to be this cocky?" he added. The 3 guys' faces shifted to surprise and confusion at Andrew's scornful tone. Before they could respond, Andrew continued without missing a beat, his voice sharper and more challenging. "If you are lucky, you qualify for the regional playoffs. But you know what? After this game, your school is going to be without a quarterback and no playoffs." "What? What the hell are you talking about?" one of the guys asked, his brow furrowed, clearly annoyed and confused by Andrew's words. "This will be the last game of your pathetic sports career. You won't even want to play again after the humiliation you're about to suffer in a few hours," Andrew said, a slow grin forming on his face, one that made the 3 guys instinctively take a step back. The Jefferson High School players felt something off and unsettling, absolute confidence radiating from Andrew that left them shaken. "Talk, you piece of shit. If I miss a single pass, I'll cut off my own hand and mail it to you," Andrew said, stepping forward again, making the 3 guys recoil further. "Let's go. We need to warm up," the guy beside the quarterback muttered, eyeing Andrew as if he were some kind of lunatic. Within seconds, the 3 of them disappeared down the hallway. Andrew didn't move. He just watched them until they were completely out of sight. "Who the hell are you?" Howard and Leonard thought, completely stunned by how Andrew had just intimidated 3 senior players from a rival school. They had always known about Andrew's fierce competitiveness on the football field. They knew he was an exceptional quarterback, but they had never seen him act with such contempt and intimidation. They had witnessed his serious focus and unshakable confidence before, but seeing him display such a harsh, almost cruel attitude was a complete shock. "Do you guys think I should show that attitude in the video?" Andrew asked with his usual smile, looking at his 2 friends who immediately shook their heads. "You'd scare everyone," Leonard exclaimed. "Although, maybe it could be good publicity. A personality like that might attract the masses since you'd stand out," Howard commented, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "Let's do the last take, or I'll be late," Andrew said, checking the time on his phone. He had already missed a few minutes of warm UPS, and that wasn't exactly setting a good example as the team leader. Chapter 52, Humiliation. J. Pritchett drove his truck at a slightly dangerous speed, gripping the steering wheel tightly, frustration evident on his face. "Damn it, why did it take you so long to pick an outfit, Manny? What are you, a girl?" Jay complained, almost growling as he made a sharp right turn. Manny, sitting in the back seat, didn't seem fazed by Jay's comment. You must understand, Jay, that a man's attire is extremely important. One never knows when they might run into their future soulmate, Manny replied, adjusting his fine fabric turtleneck slightly, as if preparing for a grand appearance. It's a football game, Manny, not a fashion show. And if there are any girls there, they'll be looking at Andrew, Jay scoffed impatiently, not putting much thought into his words. To him, all eyes would be on Andrew, his favorite grandson, though he would never openly admit it. Not because he cared about hurting the other three's feelings, but because he didn't want to deal with his stubborn daughter, Claire. This time, Manny didn't reply and simply looked out the window, a slight frown on his face. Jay always compared him to Andrew, and the comparisons were never in his favor. His small gesture went unnoticed by Jay, whose eyes remained fixed on the road, his thoughts focused on the game, oblivious to the sadness reflected in Manny's eyes. However, Gloria, sitting in the passenger seat, did notice her son's expression. She shot Jay an accusatory look. Don't be so mean, Jay! Gloria exclaimed, her Colombian accent heavy with reproach. He's just a boy who wants to look good, please. She added. He can look good without taking more than 30 minutes to pick an outfit, Jay muttered more to himself. What? Speak up, Gloria said in a threatening tone. Nothing. Sorry, Manny, Jay said, not wanting to argue. He didn't have time for this, and he knew Gloria was a fighter. This argument could last forever. Right now, the most important thing was not being late to the game. Gloria instantly knew Jay's apologetic tone was completely fake. She was sure he didn't even realize what he had said wrong, but she let it go. Arguing now wouldn't be wise. Finally, they arrived at the parking lot near the school stadium. The problem was that it was almost completely full. After several minutes of searching, they found a spot far from the stadium, meaning they would have to walk quite a distance. Jay, of course, cursed about this and hurried Gloria and Manny along, feeling like they were walking at a snail's pace. Why did you wear heels to a football game? Jay asked, frowning as he looked at Gloria's tall red stilettos. She was walking slowly and carefully across the parking lot. It's the final game of the regular season. I have to be well dressed for the occasion and for the photos when they give Andrew his awards, Gloria replied with a slight smile. Like Manny, she had also taken a long time to pick out her outfit. Regular season finales usually don't have official award ceremonies like the ones seen in regional and state playoffs. However, Andrew's school had planned a small individual awards ceremony to highlight the players. This was because, for the first time in years, Palisades High School had made it to the regional playoffs, not only qualifying but finishing in first place with the best record in the school's history. The school was thrilled and had organized this awards ceremony to celebrate the team and encourage them to keep up their strong performance in the regional playoffs and, who knows, maybe even qualify for the state playoffs for the first time in history. You too, Mom. Manny thought, feeling a strange mix of jealousy and frustration. Though he would never admit it out loud, something inside him stirred as he watched his mother, so enthusiastic and excited about Andrew's athletic career, supporting him so much. Gloria hadn't even understood football rules before, and now she seemed like an expert. Plus, her relationship with Andrew had always been good. He had accepted and included them in the family before anyone else. Since Manny wasn't interested in any sports and Gloria was an enthusiast, she had naturally focused her energy on Andrew in that area without realizing that her own son felt left out. Manny didn't want to admit it, but he couldn't help feeling jealous of how all the family's attention was centered on Andrew. They finally entered the stadium, which was nearly packed and buzzing with energy. The 2,000-seat stadium, which had once been difficult to fill, was now completely full every Friday without fail. As Jay, Gloria, and Manny walked down the aisle toward their seats, people began recognizing Jay instantly. Some flashed him smiles and nodded in greeting, while others enthusiastically called out to him. Hey, Jay! You finally made it! The boys are already warming up. Though Andrew's nowhere to be seen. And he's not with you. The parents of the players and regular attendees already knew Jay well. He was Andrew's grandfather, after all. Jay greeted everyone with a smile and his usual raspy voice, his previous bad mood vanishing in an instant. A man approached Jay with a grin. Jay! Your family's already here and in their seats. Let me take you to them, he said, handing Jay a cold beer. Oh, great! Lead the way, Matthew, Jay replied with a smile as he accepted the beer. The man, Matthew, was part of the school's sports committee. He led Jay, Gloria, and Manny to their seats, which were right at the 50-yard line, a perfect view of the field. Cameron, Mitchell, and Lily were already there, as well as the entire Dunphy family. Phil was sitting next to Luke, who was rapidly devouring a tray of nachos with cheese. "Slow down, buddy. They're not gonna run out you properly," Phil said, handing Luke a soda to keep him from choking. Alex was reading a book, completely oblivious to the stadium's atmosphere. Haley was absorbed in her phone, though unlike Alex, she was actually waiting for the game to start. Claire was talking with Archie's mother about how much their sons would crush the opposing team. She had become friends with Mary, Archie's mother, because she was just as competitive as Claire and wanted her son to dominate his rivals. Jay greeted everyone briefly and took his seat. He also greeted the parents of Reggie, Archie, Kevin, and Steve, especially the fathers. "Great seats, hey," said Fred, Archie's father, with a smile. "Yeah, the perk of having star players on the team," Jay commented, letting out a dry chuckle while looking toward the field. "Reggie is the way he is thanks to Andrew. If he were on his own, he'd be a total mess, but Andrew knows how to keep him in line," said Marty, Reggie's father, with a small laugh. His son was a disaster at school, rebellious, bad grades, and constantly getting into trouble. Marty had no idea how to make him behave since he was always busy working. He saw his son's talent in sports, but thanks to Andrew, Reggie had discipline, or at least that's what Marty thought, judging by how his son carried himself. "Does everyone really have to talk about him like he's the Jesus Christ of football?" Manny thought, clearly exasperated by the endless stream of praise for Andrew. "Do we really have to watch the game?" "We already know the outcome," Alex commented, tearing her eyes away from her book. She had to spend 2 hours of her life on this game and would much rather be at home, studying in peace without all the noise. "Oh God," Haley sighed, finally looking up from her phone to glance at Alex. "What?" Alex snapped, her tone unfriendly. "You have no social life outside of Andrew's Friday night games, and now you want to skip those too? If you stop watching these games, you'll turn into a hermit who only lives between home and school," Haley said with a teasing smile. "A total loner," she added. "I'm not a loner. I just prefer doing something productive rather than wasting my time on something so predictable," Alex said, crossing her arms. "And what about you? Do you even know the meaning of the word productive? It might help improve your grades and your life in general," Alex shot back, escalating the argument until Claire had to step in, yelling louder than both of them. At that moment, Pippa arrived with her parents, along with Leonard and Howard, who had secured these seats since they were Andrew's friends. Kem and Mitch greeted Pippa's parents warmly as they took their seats next to them. "Where's Andrew?" Pippa asked Leonard and Howard, noticing that Andrew wasn't warming up with the rest of the team. Jay, Claire, Phil, and everyone else stopped talking and turned to look at Leonard and Howard, who suddenly felt a bit nervous under the weight of all the sudden stares. "He should have come out by now," Leonard answered. They had already recorded the first part of the video, and Andrew should have been on the field by now. "Maybe he's just getting in the right mindset to destroy this team," Howard commented, recalling how intimidating Andrew had been when someone called his parents strangers. "What do you mean?" Kem asked with slight concern. Luckily, Howard didn't need to answer because a roar erupted from the stadium. Everyone turned toward the field, and there he was, Andrew, jogging onto the field at a moderate pace. "He's angry," Haley commented. "Yeah. Did you notice? His brow is constantly furrowed," Kem said, and Haley nodded several times. "Oh. You're right. I hadn't noticed, it's barely perceptible," Pippa added from the side, squinting to get a better look at Andrew's face. She spotted a barely noticeable furrow in his brow, something unusual for him. Haley glanced at Pippa for a moment, said nothing, and returned her gaze to the field. The warm-up ended, and the cheerleading performance, led by Regina, began. There were 1,700 people watching the game from Palisades High School, with the rest being visitors from the rival school. Regina shined. The entire spotlight of the performance was on her, and the whole stadium cheered as she flawlessly executed the intricate choreography they had prepared. Howard didn't miss a second of it, aiming his camera at the cheerleaders and recording the entire show. "Pervert," Lauren muttered, noticing through the camera that Howard was zooming in on an area that made him look like a creep. "When did you get here?" Howard asked, startled, realizing that Kara, Lauren, and Zach were now sitting to his right. "Just a bit ago. We went to get food and drinks," Lauren replied with a grimace as she saw that Howard hadn't stopped recording and was still zooming in. The performance ended when the cheerleaders held up a giant paper banner, and the team made their entrance, led by Andrew. After that, the rival team entered, and the game began. The referee called both team captains to the center of the field for the coin toss. The winner would choose whether to attack or defend. Andrew called heads. It landed on heads. Without hesitation, he chose to start on offense. "We're going for a kickoff. I need you to protect me," Andrew said, surrounded by the offensive team, all listening attentively. They nodded seriously, unsurprised by their captain's absolute confidence. He gave a few instructions, and they got ready to receive the kick. A kickoff return touchdown happens when the player catching the ball manages to evade all defenders and runs to the opponent's end zone without being tackled. This type of play is spectacular and rare since the kicking team usually has the advantage in coverage and tries to prevent long returns. However, if the returner is fast, agile, and has good blockers, he can pull it off. The opposing kicker sent the ball soaring through the air with a powerful kick. Andrew, positioned at the 5-yard line of his own field, locked his eyes on the perfect spiral descending toward him. Without hesitation, he caught the ball firmly and immediately took off running. His blockers reacted instantly. Reggie and Kevin cleared the way with hard blocks, taking down the first defenders trying to close the gap. Andrew dodged the first tackle with a sharp cut to the left, then changed direction with an explosive move, leaving another defender behind. The crowd erupted in cheers as Andrew accelerated. His strides were unstoppable, and his speed only seemed to increase. He spun skillfully past another tackle attempt. By the time he crossed the 50-yard line, only 2 defenders stood in his way. Archie cleared the path with one last crushing block, and Andrew saw his opportunity. He picked up the pace, leaving the last man behind. Touchdown! I never thought I'd witness a kickoff return touchdown at the very start of the game. Only 10 seconds. The commentator shouted, jumping from his seat in excitement. The clock showed only 10 seconds, and Palisades School already had the lead. The stadium went wild. Only 10 seconds into the game, and Andrew was already in the end zone, gripping the ball tightly as his team rushed toward him to celebrate. From the stands, Jay stood up with a proud smile, clapping enthusiastically. Gloria also jumped to her feet, shouting words of encouragement in Spanish. Phil lifted Luke onto his shoulders, cheering loudly. Alex glanced up from her book with a slight smirk. "Predictable," she muttered. She already knew the opposing team didn't stand a chance against her cousin. "That's it. Keep up that intensity, Andy," Claire shouted, eager for more action. Archie's mom felt the same way. "Did you record that? Or are you still filming the cheerleaders?" Clara asked Howard, who had his camera pointed at the field. "I recorded it," Howard replied. Pippa and her parents joined the celebrations alongside Mitchell and Cam. "Did you see that, Lily? That's your brother," Cam exclaimed proudly, pointing at the field. "She's asleep, Cam," Mitchell said with a strange expression. He wasn't sure what was weirder, that Cam hadn't noticed their daughter's Asian eyes were closed or that Lily could sleep through all the noise. Meanwhile, in the stands, Haley was the only one who didn't share the general excitement. She clapped mechanically, without effort, her eyes fixed on Andrew. Something didn't add up. "This is weird," Haley thought. She had never seen Andrew play with such aggression right from the start. The most unsettling moment, if it could even be called that, came when he reached the end zone, though almost no one noticed. Andrew didn't smile. He didn't raise his arms in victory. He didn't even show the slight happy grin of celebrating with his teammates running toward him. His face was serious. Cold. Haley was right. Andrew had an intensity that soon everyone began to notice. The first quarter ended, and the game was an absolute blowout, 24-0 in favor of Palisades High School. Andrew played both offense and defense. So far, he hadn't missed a single pass and had been involved in every scoring play. He also had an impressive number of highly effective tackles. Every time Andrew tackled, the impact echoed through the stadium, hard, almost brutal hits that made people turn away or gasp, "Oof." The opposing quarterback, the one who had previously called his parents weird, became Andrew's primary target. He was tackled multiple times, hitting the ground hard and getting up in pain. The entire opposing team, and even the spectators, began to realize that Andrew wasn't playing to win, he was playing to destroy them. Even Claire, who had earlier wanted to see blood and enjoyed watching her nephew demolish the rival team, started feeling sympathy for them. The Jefferson High School players looked exhausted and defeated, and the faces of their parents showed distress. And this was only the end of the first quarter. There were still 3 more to go. This is weird. Did I lose my sense of euphoria after so many touchdowns? Claire murmured, arms crossed. The second quarter began, and it only took 30 seconds for Palisades School to score another touchdown, a perfect pass from Andrew, caught by Alan, who celebrated enthusiastically. Andrew's teammates noticed something was off, but it was better for them. The pity was for the losers. If they could crush their opponent and set incredible winning records, all the better for them. Meanwhile, the opposing quarterback, who Andrew had tackled several times, began throwing erratic passes under pressure, his body shaking every time he saw Andrew coming. He remembered what he had said to Andrew and regretted it. Maybe he shouldn't have been so cocky. Game over. Palisades wins with 80 points to 0 against Jefferson. The announcer declared in astonishment, his voice full of disbelief. The stadium erupted in cheers and applause. Coach David approached, smiling with satisfaction. Great job, Andrew. You were more fired up than usual today. Why so much intensity? He asked, somewhat curious, noticing something seemed different about his star quarterback. Andrew took off his helmet and smiled faintly, returning to his usual enthusiasm and good energy. Really? I played just like I always do. It must be that the other team is just too weak, he responded. Chapter 53, Family Aggressiveness. Andrew took off his helmet and smiled faintly, returning to his usual enthusiasm and good energy. Really? I played just like I always do. It must be that the other team is just too weak, he responded. Oh. I see, said Coach David, giving Andrew a strange look. It was odd for him to smile so pleasantly after utterly destroying an opposing team, securing the most crushing and humiliating result of the regular season against them. Moreover, because of this result, it was very likely that Jefferson High School would lose its 4th place in the standings, making their chances of reaching the regional playoffs almost non-existent, as only the top 16 out of 32 teams would advance. The opposing team rushed to the locker room as soon as the game ended. They wanted to get as far away from Andrew and the rest of his team as possible. The same went for the visiting spectators. Meanwhile, the school's sports committee staff began setting up a stage in the middle of the field for the awards ceremony the school had organized. It wasn't an official event, but rather a way to motivate their team and recognize their achievements after such a successful regular season. As the staff set up the stage, the team's players chatted enthusiastically and laughed. Some even started talking to the cheerleaders who had stepped onto the field. Jason was one of them, and despite no longer being the starting quarterback, he had a smile on his face and spoke with excitement. That was because he had earned a starting position on offense as an outside receiver. Even though Jason's passes weren't great and, in Andrew's eyes, his skill level was low, as a former quarterback, Jason had a better understanding of plays and how passing routes were structured. This allowed him to position himself well and read defensive coverages, making him a tough target to defend. On top of that, his senior year physique was above average, securing him a spot as one of the 3 receivers in the offense alongside Steve and Alan. Andrew took off his helmet, placing it on one of the bench seats, and started drinking water. His face was covered in sweat. That was intense, he thought. Even though the game had been easy, he had given his all on both offense and defense, determined to crush the opposing team on every play. He hadn't missed a single pass throughout the game. In fact, he had thrown the most touchdown passes with perfect accuracy. He had also run the ball multiple times, scoring rushing touchdowns and proving himself as a dual threat both in the air and on the ground. Defensively, he had shined as well. He led the team in tackles, stopping opponents at every attempt to advance. Seeing the rival quarterback's expression, he felt satisfied with his performance. That's what happens when they mess with my family, he thought. Congratulations on winning the game and being the star again. You really destroyed them, hey. Andrew heard a confident, haughty female voice. Turning his head, he saw Regina's striking face looking at him with a faint, self-assured smile. She was wearing the Palisades High School cheerleading uniform, a snug, dark blue top with white accents, the school's logo precisely embroidered on the chest. The top had a V-cut neckline, emphasizing her athletic figure. She also wore a short, vibrant blue skirt decorated with white stripes along the edges, paired with white athletic sneakers. Thanks. I played just like always, Andrew said, setting his water bottle on the ground. I don't think so, Regina replied with a subtle smirk, as if she held the absolute truth. You seemed more intense today. Angrier, she continued in an inquisitive tone. Regina had set her sights on Andrew from the first day of school when he introduced himself to Jason in a rather peculiar way. Later, she had tried to blackmail him over his geeky interests and failed spectacularly, which only made her more curious about him. Because of this, she had been observing him and noticed that he had an outgoing attitude and a natural ability to connect with everyone. However, Regina wondered if this image of a nice guy was genuine or just a carefully constructed facade. She eventually realized that it was his true personality and not something fabricated, unlike Veronica's witch-like persona, for example. That's why she sought his help regarding Veronica and the blackmail situation. And she wasn't wrong. He helped her, and not once did he mock her maliciously about the predicament she was in. He was very different from most guys like that idiot Alan, who she was sure knew about the photo and still let Veronica use his phone. Although she would never admit it openly, at that moment, she started to feel something more for Andrew, something she couldn't easily categorize. I was just focused, like always. Andrew said, not wanting to explain to Regina why he had crushed the opposing team. Regina didn't believe a word. She had been watching him closely for months and knew that something had happened. But before she could respond and pry further into his business, a voice echoed through the stadium. Attention, players, families, and students of Palisades. Please join us on the field to celebrate our team after a spectacular regular season finish. We're among the top 16 in our section. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, beginning to make their way down from the bleachers toward the now finished stage. The California Interscholastic Federation, CIF, is divided into 10 main sections. Palisades School belongs to the Los Angeles City section, which consists of 32 teams in Division V. Out of these 32 teams, only the top 16 would qualify for the regional or sectional playoffs. The champion of the sectional playoffs would be crowned the Division V sectional champion and earn a spot in the state playoffs. In the state playoffs, they would face the other 9 sectional champions from the CIF. Regina huffed in annoyance at having her conversation with Andrew interrupted. Andrew watched as his entire family approached him, and just like that, his previous irritation over the rival quarterback's words vanished. A genuine smile spread across his face as he quickly moved toward them. Hey! Regina started, about to stop him, but she froze in place when she saw Andrew's happy expression. That must be his family. There are so many of them, she thought. Then, almost unconsciously, she looked around for traces of her own family but found none. She wasn't disappointed. She had expected as much. Even though she was the head cheerleader, her parents didn't even come to watch this game since work was more important. That was incredible, son. Kim exclaimed, not even pausing for breath after arriving. Why didn't you crush them even more? I think you could have scored one more touchdown per quarter. Beside him, Mitchell sighed internally while pushing Lily's stroller. It's true. A few more tackles on that idiot quarterback wouldn't have been a bad idea, Claire encouraged, clenching her fist tightly, as if she herself had wanted to be on the field and tackle that kid. Calm down, everyone, Phil said in his usual reassuring tone, though this time, his face was lit up with a satisfied smile he couldn't quite hide. I think what Andrew did was more than enough. They'll have nightmares about you tonight and won't want to step on a football field for a long time. Andrew looked at his uncle. Normally, Phil always tried to soften things, to find the bright side, but now he seemed so pleased with the rival team's humiliating defeat that it almost felt out of place. The competitiveness radiating from his attitude was strange, at least for someone as kind as him. There's no need to be kind. It's better that they fear you. Too bad time ran out. A couple more tackles and that kid wouldn't even remember his own name, Jay said with a slight smile, giving Andrew a pat on the shoulder. We should take advantage and intercept them outside the stadium, Andre Saito. Gloria said, her thick Colombian accent standing out as she joined the conversation, a terrifying smile on her face. A few punches to see if they can take it, she added menacingly, cracking her knuckles. Andrew raised an eyebrow, surprised by what he had just heard. Normally, Gloria had always been blunt and straightforward, but this was something else. There was an unusual aggression in her words, especially considering that the entire opposing team had walked off looking embarrassed and on the verge of tears. I think that's going a little too far. What's up with you all today? Andrew asked, a bit confused. He had expected his family to ask him what had happened to him during the game. If Regina had noticed he was acting unusual, surely his family would too and show some concern. But that didn't seem to be the case. "We know what that idiot from Jefferson School said. Howard told us," Alex responded, adjusting her glasses in a serious tone, something rare for her when it wasn't about academics. "Howard?" Andrew said, looking at Howard, who had come along with Leonard, Kara, and the rest of their group. "They surrounded me and wouldn't let me go until I spilled everything," Howard justified himself, since after noticing how aggressive Andrew had been during the game, the family had recalled the comment Howard had made before the game started. "Oh," Andrew said, not really knowing what to say in this situation. "You did well crushing them." "I still support what Gloria suggested," Haley said, frowning. "No one messed with her uncles. No one messes with family," Luke declared, lifting his head with unexpected seriousness, surprising everyone present. "What?" Andrew thought, looking at Luke strangely. Luke, the mischievous, playful, and immature kid who was always doing dumb things and getting into trouble, was suddenly speaking as if he were an adult with all the wisdom in the world. But it didn't last long. Luke noticed he had nacho cheese on his fingers. Without caring that everyone was staring at him in shock, he began licking his hands, completely unconcerned about the seriousness he had shown seconds before. "See, Claire? Sometimes, Luke's words come just when we least expect them," Phil said, smiling with fatherly pride. "Yes, I'm very proud of your words," Claire said with a smile, wiping the nacho cheese from Luke's mouth with a napkin. "Thank you for defending us, son." "I'm very proud of you," Mitchell said with a smile, giving Andrew a pat on the back. "It's nothing. I'll do it as many times as needed," Andrew said with a slight smile, scratching his cheek. It felt good to have his family's support when crushing other people's dreams. "That's right, Andre Saito. Now we just need to beat them up outside the stadium," Gloria said, her eyes gleaming with excitement at the idea of a street fight. "I don't think that's the best idea, Gloria," Mitchell said, raising an eyebrow with a somewhat awkward expression. "We don't want Andrew getting suspended." Just then, they called Andrew to the stage. "Go, go. I'll record the entire award ceremony," Kim said enthusiastically, winking at him. This ceremony was far more important than the others. It was the moment his son would ask Pippa to be his girlfriend. Andrew said goodbye to his family and, before heading to the stage, briefly greeted Pippa and her family, as he hadn't had the chance to do so earlier. Pippa gave him a quick kiss, which didn't go unnoticed by many, especially Regina and Haley, who subtly furrowed their brows. Chapter 54, The Confession. "That kiss should have lasted longer," Kara said, moving closer to Pippa while watching Andrew, who was already farther away, approaching the stage. Fortunately, he was close by, otherwise, he would have had to push through a huge crowd to get there. "What do you mean?" Pippa asked, glancing at Kara out of the corner of her eye. She didn't want to miss Andrew's ceremony. She knew he would receive many awards since he had been the best player on the team all season. "The kiss you just had with Andrew, you should have held onto him and made it last longer. Mark your territory. Didn't you see Regina talking to him? She looked very friendly," Kara explained. Pippa stared at the stage, thinking. She had noticed that too. But unlike Kara, she knew why Regina had approached Andrew. It was obvious that she was grateful to him for helping her delete that picture in her underwear. So, it wouldn't be surprising if the most popular girl in school now wanted to get closer to Andrew and saw him with interest. "Yeah, that bitch is being way too friendly with him, and we don't know why," Lauren said, joining the conversation. "Well, you do know," she added, looking at Pippa. She wanted the gossip but knew her friend wouldn't talk if Andrew had asked her to keep it a secret. "I told you that you should talk to Andrew about making your relationship official," Kara said, crossing her arms. Pippa said nothing. Maybe it was time to put into words what she and Andrew were. Luckily for Pippa, the school principal began speaking on stage, causing her two friends to drop the topic. The principal congratulated the team for their dominant victory today and for the entire season in general. All the team members were given commemorative medals. Then, the individual recognition for the best players of the team began. The first award was for the best defensive player, given to Liam, the leader of the defense. The second award was for the best running back, won by Archie. His mother screamed and applauded with great enthusiasm. The third award was for the best receiver, won by Alan. And finally, the MVP award, the principal announced, sending a wave of anticipation through the players and the audience. I think everyone will agree when I say that this young man has been the driving force of our team. He has led every offense with precision, demonstrated exceptional game vision, and shredded defenses without mercy. With his talent, determination, and ice-cold composure in crucial moments, he has elevated this team to a level we had never seen in this institution's history, he continued, pausing dramatically. His numbers this season are outstanding: passing yards, touchdowns, clutch plays. And while we still have the playoffs ahead, there's no doubt that the number one quarterback in our division is Andrew Pritchett. The ovation was immediate. The stadium erupted in applause and cheers as Andrew stood up. His teammates patted him on the back and pushed him toward the center of the stage. Whoa, it's more packed than ever today, Andrew thought as he looked around the stadium, with over 1,500 people standing and chanting his name. He was used to being cheered on by this many people even more since, in his past life, the stadium at his old school had a capacity of around 18,000. Just Pritchett. He's a Tucker too. Kem shouted indignantly while recording Andrew with his camera. He's a Tucker too. Tucker. Andrew Pritchett Tucker. He insisted, even cupping his hands around his mouth like a megaphone, momentarily forgetting to keep recording. Mitchell, standing beside him, sighed. Cam, please. Why are they only saying Pritchett? My last name matters too. Cam kept complaining, now waving his hands in frustration. Claire, with a teasing smile, patted him on the shoulder. Cam, that's just how it is. Pritchett carries more weight in sports, she said, and Jay nodded with a small smirk. Meanwhile, Andrew was handed the MVP trophy. Well done, kid. You deserve more recognition than just an MVP award, the principal said in a low voice, shaking Andrew's hand. Andrew could have easily won the Best Defensive Player award for all his successful and crucial tackles. He had also been an excellent running back, despite being a quarterback. Thanks. Andrew replied with a smile as the principal handed him the microphone to say a few words. For him, this was better. They couldn't give all the awards to one player, it would just make things awkward. Thank you for the recognition. Oh, and I should also clarify that my last name is Pritchett Tucker, Andrew said, leaning into the microphone. That's my son. Kem shouted with a wide smile, thrilled that Andrew had included his last name. He clarified it because he knows how dramatic you are. Mitchell murmured, shaking his head. I always say that football is a team sport. I just throw the ball, but if they're not there to catch it, to open up spaces, to protect me, there are no spectacular plays. So none of this would be possible alone, Andrew said, looking at his team. No matter how talented he was, he couldn't win games on his own, not even in a 5th division team. Besides, he had some incredibly skilled players by his side, and not just that, players who gave their all to improve and perform well. Like Alan and Jason, who had completely changed their mindset. The crowd erupted in applause, and his team roared in approval. Andrew waited for the noise to settle before continuing. But we're not done yet, he said with a confident smile. We've got the regional playoffs ahead, and I promise you, we'll bring the section championship trophy back to this school. He added, raising his MVP trophy high. The stadium exploded in cheers and ovations. The crowd was celebrating as if they had already won the regional playoffs. Andrew smiled slightly, watching his family's excitement. However, his smile slowly faded. The confession. Should I really do it in front of everyone, he thought nervously. He had played this moment over and over in his head, wanting it to be special. But now, with thousands of people in the stadium watching him, he felt more nervous than he had during the entire game. Facing a relentless defense was easy, but standing in front of Pippa and asking the question with all these eyes on him, that was something else entirely. He was confident Pippa would say yes, 100% sure. After all, they already acted like a couple. The problem was that this would turn them into the center of attention, like something straight out of a romantic movie. Andrew swallowed hard and looked toward Pippa. She wasn't far from the stage, smiling at him sweetly and waving charmingly. Come on. This isn't harder than throwing a pass while having a heart attack, right? Andrew thought, psyching himself up as the ovations died down. Would you like to say something else? The principal asked, noticing that Andrew was still holding the microphone, standing frozen in place as he gazed at the crowd. Andrew nodded, took a deep breath, and brought the microphone to his lips. Yes. Yes, there's something I want to ask, Andrew said firmly, making the entire crowd fall silent with intrigue. People in the stands began whispering to each other, wondering what exactly he was about to ask. Some players on stage looked at him in confusion, and even his family seemed puzzled except for Cameron and Mitchell. He's really going to do it? Leonard murmured near Howard. They, along with Andrew's parents, were the only ones aware of the confession. He's got my respect. I could never work up the courage to confess in front of everyone, even if I knew the girl would say yes, Howard said in a low voice. First, you need to get the girl, Leonard quipped with a slight smile, earning a punch on the shoulder from Howard. Then, Andrew extended his arm and pointed at Pippa. Pippa, can you come here for a moment? He said, his voice echoing throughout the stadium. Within seconds, all eyes turned to her. A wave of surprised murmurs spread across the crowd, and the students started reacting with gasps of astonishment. What is he doing? Oh, no way! Is he really going to do what I think he is? Pippa, initially stunned by the sudden attention, froze for a moment. Her face turned slightly red, and an expression of shyness washed over her. Go on, sweetheart, her mother said, giving her a gentle push with the help of Lauren and Kara. Quick, Josh, put my phone on record, this is going to be epic. Victor said, handing his phone to his youngest son. He still wasn't too familiar with modern technology. Pippa snapped back to reality and walked toward the stage. The crowd instinctively made way for her, allowing her to move without difficulty. Now face to face, they stared at each other closely. The entire stadium was silent, hanging on the moment. Pippa, will you be my girlfriend? Andrew finally asked, making the entire stadium hold its breath. A sudden eruption of murmurs, gasps, and reactions filled the air. Oh my god! No way! This is incredible! What's so incredible? I thought they were already dating, a guy said, watching his girlfriend react as if she were witnessing the greatest romance movie of her life. Idiot, you wouldn't understand, his girlfriend replied, elbowing him hard in the ribs. Pippa's initial shyness vanished, replaced by a radiant smile. Yes, I do. Pippa answered confidently. The stadium erupted in cheers and applause. Andrew didn't think twice. He quickly jumped off the stage, making his way to Pippa, who stood just a few steps away. Without saying another word, he wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her in front of everyone. The crowd roared in celebration. Shouts of excitement, applause, and cheers filled the air as Andrew's teammates hollered and his family reacted with enthusiasm. Kim had to push through the crowd to capture the perfect shot on his camera. The kiss lasted only a few seconds. When they pulled apart, Pippa let out a nervous laugh and hid her face against Andrew's chest, still blushing and shy from all the people watching and applauding. Andrew looked up, meeting the eyes of the ecstatic crowd, all clapping and cheering with uncontainable excitement. Well, I think I caused more chaos than I intended, Andrew murmured. Pippa, who heard him, lifted her head slightly to look at him with a playful smile. I thought neither of us liked drawing too much attention, she teased. Blame my dad. He taught me that important moments should be treated as such, Andrew said with a small smile. Well, then I guess I'll have to thank him more than blame him, Pippa replied. Even though she didn't usually care for being the center of attention, this time, she truly felt special. After Andrew's confession, the ceremony didn't last much longer, and the sports committee began dismantling the stage. The players took photos with their families and friends on the field. Andrew posed for pictures with his entire family and his teammates, all of whom congratulated him on his relationship with Pippa. Come on, Haley, get over here, Claire called, raising her hand and motioning for her to come closer, while Phil, Luke, Alex, and Andrew positioned themselves for the Dunphy family photo with Andrew. I don't want to, Haley replied, her attention fixed on her phone as usual. What's wrong with you? You're always taking pictures, and now you don't want to? Claire asked, frustrated, trying to keep her irritation in check. Come on, sweetheart, join us. I'll let you hold half of Andrew's MVP trophy, and I'll hold the other half, Phil offered, confident this would entice his daughter into the photo. What? But you told me I'd be holding the other half. Luke complained, staring at his father from the side. I was just joking. I'm sure your sister would be happy to share the half with you, Phil said. Just hand over your half. Luke muttered. Come on, Haley. It's a family tradition. Even Alex follows it, Andrew called out with a smile, looking toward his cousin, who returned his gaze with a frown. With a small, resigned sigh, Hailey finally stepped forward, crossing her arms, willing to make a brief appearance in the photo. After that picture, Andrew moved on to take one with his grandfather, Gloria, and Manny. This time, it was Manny who refused to be in the photo for reasons unknown, just like Hailey. "I don't want to," Manny said, crossing his arms and looking away with an offended expression. "What the hell is going on today?" Andrew thought, confused. "Fine, don't be in it," Jay said bluntly before stepping closer to Andrew and looking at the camera Kim was holding. Just like Phil, Jay grabbed the MVP trophy as if it were his own, though he angled it slightly toward Andrew. "Jay, wait. Don't take the picture yet," Gloria said in a threatening tone that made Jay sigh in resignation. "Why don't you want to be in the photo, me Nino?" Gloria asked sweetly as she approached Manny. "Just because," Manny replied curtly. He wasn't about to admit he was jealous of all the attention Andrew was getting. Besides, Andrew had just made a declaration straight out of a romance movie he was the expert in those things. "Not Andrew. Manuel Alberto Javier Alejandro Ramirez Delgado, you are taking that photo. We are not breaking a family tradition the very first year we've joined this family," Gloria said, making a complete 180-degree turn in her tone and glaring at Manny with a deep frown. "If you don't, I'll take away your morning coffee," Gloria added, and Manny looked at her, shocked and outraged. "You wouldn't dare," Manny said slowly, narrowing his eyes at his mother. "Oh, believe me, I will dare, muchachito," Gloria said, and with no other choice, Manny stepped into the photo. He wasn't about to take such a huge risk, he'd rather just take the photo. After that, Andrew took a photo with his parents and Lily. Finally, they took a full family picture. At last, they left the stadium. Andrew headed back home. He needed to take a quick shower before heading to his grandfather's house with his family. That's where the dinner would take place, and Pippa would be attending with her parents and younger brother as well. Chapter 55, Viral Video and Flappy Bird. December 20, 2008. It had been just over 20 days since the last regular season game, in which Palisades School humiliated Jefferson School with an 80-0 victory. Andrew uploaded the video to his new channel, where he would mainly post content about his sports life. Howard had recorded the segment of the argument between Andrew and the three boys from Jefferson School, where they mocked his parents for being homosexual. Andrew called them pathetic because they were in fourth place and acted like they were a big deal. He also told them that if he missed a pass, he would cut off his hand and send it to them by mail, and that after this game, they would never want to play football again because of the humiliation he would put them through. In the end, everything he said came true. Andrew didn't miss a single pass and completely humiliated them. They couldn't even score a single touchdown the entire game. But that wasn't all. They lost their fourth place ranking and failed to qualify for the regional playoffs. Howard told him to include the argument in the YouTube video, encouraging him not to fear success. He said Andrew's intimidating and slightly maniacal personality, since it wasn't exactly normal to say he'd cut off his hand for missing a pass, would be appealing. Andrew thought about it and decided to go for it. So, he uploaded the video with a striking title. "They insulted my family before the game, so I humiliated them, 80-0, final regular season football game highlights." The video went viral. In these 20 days since it was posted, the video has reached 500,000 views and continues to climb. Andrew never imagined that using a sensationalist title technique, though he wasn't lying about the humiliation, would make his video, which was over 10 minutes long, so popular. The video started with his introduction, followed by the argument with the Jefferson School boys, and finally, a compilation of Andrew's best plays, which were many. YouTube. Television. "They insulted my family before the game, so I humiliated them, 80-0, final regular season football game highlights." Bust in silhouette Andrew Pritchett Tucker. Pushpin 29,832 subscribers. 503,683 views. Hourglass with flowing sand posted 23 days ago. Speech balloon 8,534 comments. Comments section. At Gridiron King 23, "This guy plays like he has an NFL contract and a personal vendetta on every pass." At QB4 Life, "Anyone else watching this on repeat? 80-0, total humiliation." At Brad 1986, "As a former Jefferson student, this is the worst day of my life." At Andrew Fan Page 1, "This video made me a fan of Andrew. Hope he keeps uploading content." At haters gonna hate, all just for show. Let's see if he does the same in a real game. At Themenkey 69, incredible talent, but that ego might cost him. We'll see if he can handle the pressure. At Horse Exterminator 2000, buy milk. At Clarence 77, if I miss a single pass, I'll cut off my hand bro, he really meant it. Skull. Andrew couldn't believe he had gained so many subscribers in just 23 days. His channel wasn't even a month old. Beyond this first viral video, he continued uploading more content, taking advantage of his newfound popularity. Because of this, he surpassed 1 million total views across just 5 videos and reached nearly 30k subscribers. Since he kept posting high-quality, well-edited videos, YouTube invited him to the partner program just 20 days after creating his channel. Andrew didn't expect this much success. In fact, he had already surpassed his first gaming channel in subscribers, which had recently reached 15,000 subscribers in almost 5 months, a steady and growing pace, but nothing as crazy as his new channel. On his gaming channel, he was already part of the YouTube Partner Program. 15 days ago, he filled out the form, linked his father's Google AdSense account, and everything was set up correctly. YouTube transfers the money to the Google AdSense account between the 21st and 26th of the current month. So, in just a few days, Andrew would receive his first paycheck from YouTube. Putting that aside, Flappy Bird had already been released on the Android market. His parents talked with Pippa's parents and came to an agreement. Since Pippa had suggested that Andrew's parents link their bank account and upload the game, her parents respected her decision. The profits would be split 50-50 between Pippa and Andrew. It wasn't a long or difficult discussion. Andrew believed that neither his parents nor Pippa's thought that the game they had created could be a success or make a lot of money. However, they were completely wrong. Andrew had decided to go with a simple but effective strategy, a free version with ads and a premium version without ads. The idea was to offer players the option to enjoy the game for free but with ad interruptions, while those willing to pay a small amount could have an ad-free experience. At that time, in-game advertising wasn't as common or profitable as it is today. The CPM, cost per 1,000 impressions, was extremely low, averaging less than $1 per 1,000 ad views. Additionally, the user base wasn't as large as it would be in later years, since Android market was just beginning to grow and didn't yet have the number of smartphones or active users that exist today. So, Andrew decided to price the premium version at just $1 affordable and ad-free. The game was a success, partly thanks to his YouTube gaming channel, where he uploaded a video playing Flappy Bird and promoting it. Downloads started to pile up quickly, and in just 20 days, the game had already generated approximately $7,500. The free version of the game had 60,000 downloads, bringing in nearly $2,000 from ad revenue. Around 10% of those 60,000 users decided to buy the ad-free version. This resulted in about 6,000 purchases, generating $5,940 in revenue. However, Google takes its 30% cut from each transaction. So after deducting Google's share, the profit was $4,158. Adding the ad revenue, the total earnings reached nearly $6,000 in just 20 days, leaving approximately $3,000 for each of them. Here are some of the many reviews people left for Flappy Bird on the Android market. Medium white star, 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 5 stars. User, Sarah Jane 88. Addictive and challenging. This game is super addictive. At first, it was really frustrating, but it's so simple and entertaining that I can't stop playing. The mechanics are easy to understand, and I love how the retro design gives it a classic feel. Well done. It's a great way to pass the time whether you're on the toilet or in class. Medium white star, medium white star, medium white star, medium white star, 4 stars. User, Alexander 666. Frustrating but fun. I love and hate this bird at the same time. It's incredibly difficult, and sometimes it almost makes me want to throw my phone, but you keep playing for that little satisfaction of beating your high score. The only issue is that the controls can be a bit unresponsive at times. But overall, it keeps me hooked. Medium white star, medium white star, medium white star, 3 stars. User, Piasso Triste. Fun game, but it could be much better with improvements. I like the concept, but I feel the game needs some improvements. Sometimes the controls don't respond well in the middle of the action, and they should add more content. Medium white star, medium white star, medium white star, 3 stars. User, GamerMaster 77. Great, but the ads can be annoying. It's an amazing game, but the ads between each attempt are really annoying. After a few rounds, I ended up buying the premium version. I recommend it if you like simple yet challenging games, but it's hard to fully enjoy it with so many ads. Medium white star, 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 5 stars. User, EricasQB1. Super addictive. I love this game, it's way too addictive. I just want one thing, for the bird not to fall. When I finally get a good score, I feel like a champion flexed biceps fire. That said, the free version has way too many ads, which made me hesitate, so I bought the premium version. Totally worth it. User, Terminator 321. Medium white star, medium white star, medium white star, 3 stars. Good, but the ads ruin it. I like the game, but after every attempt, there's a 5-second ad that makes me wonder if it's really worth playing. It's addictive, but those ads are really annoying. Not sure if I'll keep playing with so many of them. User, Flappy I love Flappy I life. Medium white star, 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 5 stars. Best game ever. I'm in love with Flappy Bird. Is that weird? I dream about him or her every time I go to sleep. P.S. I see a lot of people complaining about ads. Just pay for the premium version, you cheapskates. It's only a damn $1, you probably waste more on drugs or alcohol. User, SigmaChat666. Medium white star, 1 star. No. F bird piece of S. Ding. Ding. Andrew's eyes slowly opened. The annoying alarm kept ringing. He checked the time early morning. He had to go to school. Today was Friday, December 20th. The big day. A big day for several reasons. The main one? The sectional championship final. Palisades School had made it to the regional playoffs final with an incredible winning streak. They kept dominating every game with massive point leads. With each match, the team improved, and their hunger for victory grew. They won the round of 16, the quarterfinals, and the semifinals. The last one played away just last Friday, winning by more than 20 points. Andrew uploaded all the game videos to his new YouTube channel. At first, he hadn't planned to, but after seeing the popularity of his first video, he decided to turn it into a series, and it was working out really well. I have to record today, and study, and train too. Andrew thought as he stared at the ceiling, feeling too lazy to get out of bed. It was freezing, and he had stayed up late last night editing a video for his gaming channel, where he played with Ringo and Wazowski, Howard and Leonard. They had also started their own YouTube channel, and it was going really well for them too. Aside from the regional playoffs final, today was also the last day of school before the 2-week Christmas break. Maximum effort. Andrew thought as he slowly got out of bed and started changing, bracing himself against the cold. Chapter 56, Howard's Tactic. Hi, everyone. It's very early in the morning. Today is the regional playoffs final. We're facing Huntington Park High School, the team that won the championship last year, Andrew said, looking at the camera. His expression was slightly drowsy. I have an hour before I have to go to school, and since I won't have time later, I'll run my daily miles now, he added, grabbing the camera and heading out of his house. The videos he uploaded to his channel, Andrew Pritchett Tucker, fell into 2 categories. The first was a vlog before the game, where he showcased his preparation, diet, training with his team, the pre-game atmosphere, and then the second video focused on the game highlights, ending with a brief post-game analysis if it was worth it. This type of format was very popular. Each video averaged 200,000 views, an incredible number, though he hadn't been able to surpass the 500,000 views his first video had achieved. However, he felt that these 2 videos from the championship final might match or even surpass that record. He recorded a few clips of his run, though it wasn't very practical. He would place the camera in a spot, run back, and then sprint past it. Frustratingly, he had to go back to pick up the camera and run that section again. But with the magic of editing, none of this would be noticeable, and it would look great. After that, he showed his first meal of the day, breakfast. He displayed what he was eating and gave some tips on having a good high-protein breakfast that provides energy to start the day. With that done, he took the bus to school. The last things he needed to record were parts of the team's training and their conversation at the restaurant, a kind of pre-game ritual where they discussed their upcoming opponent, how they felt, what they expected, and more. In that segment, Andrew's subscribers got to know Reggie, Archie, Steve, Liam, Kevin, and others in more depth. It was a fun, light-hearted section rather than a serious one, thanks to the conversations they had while eating. "Don't you think he has too much on his plate?" Kim asked, his expression slightly worried as he watched Andrew get on the bus, which started pulling away. "What do you mean?" Mitchell asked, adjusting his tie. "Andrew. He has to handle so many things in his daily life, his team and training, school, his YouTube videos about video games, and now a new channel about his sports life. Oh, and I almost forgot about that game he's making more money from than a regular job," Kim said, listing everything Andrew was doing. "Flappy Bird," Mitchell said, a big fan of the game himself, which he had installed on his phone. Being the father of the game's developer, he didn't have to pay $1 for the ad-free version. "Yeah, that. Now, along with his girlfriend and friends, he's planning new updates to add things I don't really understand," Kim said. By friends, he meant Leonard and Howard, who had really enjoyed the game with the little yellow bird and had, in a way, joined the development team. They didn't want Andrew to pay them or anything, they were just doing it because they liked the game and wanted to help improve the experience. "I'm looking forward to those updates," Mitchell said, glancing at his watch. "That's not the point," Kim exclaimed, raising his voice slightly. "He's only 15, and no 15-year-old has such a hectic daily life while also maintaining an active social life," he added. "Child actors," Mitchell started to say, but when he saw Kim's glare, he stopped mid-sentence. "Don't worry," Mitchell reassured him. "Andrew has a perfect routine. He gets the sleep he needs, eats better than most kids his age, and if anything happens like a lack of energy or something we'll notice, and he'll definitely tell us." Kim nodded, slightly convinced. "All right, I have to go. See you later. Today's the big day. We're going to be champions," Mitchell said before heading off to work. He was more excited about today's final than his actual workday. Andrew went through his school day without any issues. His studies were going well, as he had already gone through 9th grade in his past life. As Andrew headed to the cafeteria with Leonard and Howard, a group of 3 girls intentionally stepped into his path, blocking his way. Between giggles and whispers, they looked at him with barely contained excitement, exchanging knowing glances. Andrew raised an eyebrow, not understanding the situation. "Do you need something?" he asked, looking at the unfamiliar girls who seemed far too entertained whispering among themselves. "Come on, tell him," one of the girls encouraged, gently pushing her curly-haired friend forward. The girl, visibly nervous but excited, swallowed before speaking. "Can you talk to me like in your video?" For a moment Andrew, Leonard, and Howard froze, exchanging confused looks. "What do you mean?" Andrew asked, not getting it. "You know, like in the first video you uploaded to your channel," the girl insisted, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "That part where you told that guy his skill level sucked and that if you ever missed a pass, you'd cut off your hand and mail it to him. Oh my god, that was amazing. Could you say something like that to me?" "But, you know, with that cold and intimidating tone," she explained. Howard nearly choked trying to hold back his laughter, while Leonard adjusted his glasses in disbelief, feeling slightly uncomfortable with the strange request. Andrew blinked at her, unsure how to respond. This is too weird, even for him, a nerd who had seen plenty of strange things on the internet. Luckily, Andrew didn't have to answer, because Howard stepped forward with a confident smile, placing his hands on his hips. "Sorry, ladies, but my friend here doesn't take custom intimidation requests. Now, if what you're looking for is someone to whisper in your ear with a seductive and mysterious tone, I could do that," Howard said, leaning slightly toward them and lowering his voice in what he thought was a sensual tone. This time, it was the girls who looked bewildered as they stared at Howard. The curly-haired girl's expression shifted from excitement to discomfort in less than a second. Her friends exchanged glances, and in the blink of an eye, the 3 of them hurried away without another word. Leonard let out a sigh of relief while Andrew patted Howard on the shoulder in gratitude. "Thanks. Your flirting attempts never fail to scare girls away," Andrew said with a smile. "It's incredible that the day has come when your flirting attempts have actually been useful. Normally, they just make things awkward and depressing," Leonard said, giving him a strange look. "Hey, my tactics work in their own way," Howard said indignantly. "How?" Andrew asked, genuinely curious. "Now I have 3 more girls who will remember I exist. And that, my friends, is what I call playing the long game, Howard replied. An interesting tactic, Andrew said, not wanting to keep criticizing Howard's methods. By the way, what the hell was that? How does that girl have no shame making a request like that? If it were the other way around, she'd call the guy a creep and a pervert, Andrew commented as they resumed their walk to the cafeteria. Well, my friend, that's one of the perks of being a girl. If we did the same, we'd be seen as pathetic losers and virgin perverts, but they get away with it, said Howard. Besides, girls like bad boys with charisma, he added. What are you talking about? Andrew asked, frowning slightly. He wasn't a bad guy. He was studious, hard-working, cared deeply about his family and friends, and was kind to strangers, like helping an old lady carry her groceries or cross the street. Think about it. It's not that different from those romance novels everywhere. Twilight is a phenomenon right now, and trust me, it's not because girls want to be bitten by sparkling vampires. It's because they love the idea of the mysterious, dangerous guy who stares at them intensely and tells them they can't be together but still chases after them, Howard explained with great seriousness. Leonard nodded with a grimace. Sadly, he's right. And if you think about it, even before that, there's always been something about the bad boy that catches attention. Remember Titanic? Everyone swooned over Jack, who was basically a homeless guy with a good jawline. Exactly. And now you, my dear Andrew, without meaning to, have become the sporty version of that. A charismatic and friendly quarterback who can suddenly turn intimidating and tackle his opponents so hard they have nightmares, Howard said, snapping his fingers. That makes no sense, Andrew muttered, shaking his head. His channel was supposed to attract guys interested in sports, not girls sighing on the other side of the screen because he had a so-called bad boy personality when he got pissed off. Classes continued without anything else out of the ordinary. After that, Andrew went to practice with his teammates. He recorded just a little. He wasn't going to put too much footage in the video. Practices had improved a lot compared to when he first started at Palisades High School earlier in the year. Coach David was no longer showing up late and had gotten better with tactics and the type of training. Since it was game day, they only had an hour of light training, mostly discussing how they would play, who would start, and other key details. At 4 in the afternoon, Andrew and several team members went to their usual restaurant to eat, keeping up with tradition. Andrew recorded the pre-game segment with his friends and teammates, talking about the final, their expectations for their rivals, and more. By 5, he rushed back home as fast as he could with Leonard and Howard. We have an hour and a half before I have to leave for the stadium, Andrew said while searching for his keys to open the door. Relax, we'll edit that video in an hour or less. There are 3 of us, it'll be easy, Howard said with a confident smile, and Leonard nodded in agreement. At Andrew's request, they were helping him edit the video for his YouTube channel, Andrew Pritchett, compiling everything he had recorded throughout the day to upload it before the game. Andrew entered the house, followed by his 2 friends. As he stepped into the living room, he saw his dad, Mitchell, and a woman with her back turned. But from her blonde hair and hippie-style tracksuit, he recognized her immediately. Grandma Deed? Andrew asked. Chapter 57, The Incident I. Grandma Deed? Andrew asked. Deed, who was on the couch to the living room entrance, turned around, and a smile formed on her face when she saw Andrew. Hi, sweetheart. Deed said enthusiastically, getting up and walking toward Andrew, who looked at her in astonishment as if he hadn't expected her visit that day, or rather, as if he sensed the impending chaos. What are you doing here? Andrew asked cautiously, while Deed, ignoring his suspicious tone, cupped his cheeks with both hands and began squeezing them as if he were a little kid. Just look at you, you're taller. Though, it's only natural with all that exercise you do, Deed remarked, ignoring Andrew's obvious attempts to free himself from her grip. Grandma. Andrew muttered, pulling away slightly. Having nails dug into your cheeks was anything but pleasant. I'm here to watch my favorite grandson's big game and meet my new granddaughter, who might just take your place, Deed replied, glancing at Lily in her stroller beside Mitchell. Favorite grandson, yeah, sure. Andrew thought. He knew that was a lie. Deed had always favored her biological grandchildren and had never been subtle about it. Perhaps she simply couldn't be, given her nature. Sure. These are my friends, Howard and Leonard, Andrew said, introducing his 2 friends, who had remained frozen in place. Deed greeted them briefly before returning to her spot next to Mitchell and Lily. Go to my room, you can start editing if you want. I'll be there in a bit, Andrew whispered to Leonard and Howard, who nodded. After greeting Mitchell, they headed to Andrew's room. Mitchell gestured for Andrew to sit next to him. He didn't want to be left alone talking to his mother after that. As for Cam, he had gone out shopping by the time Mitchell got home from work. Why are you here, Mom? I didn't know you were coming. You didn't call me, Mitchell said, picking up the conversation right where it had left off before Andrew arrived. To spend Christmas with my family, what else? Deed replied, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Mitchell and Andrew exchanged surprised looks. Just then, the sound of the front door opening was heard, followed by Cam appearing a few seconds later, carrying several shopping bags. Deed? Cam asked in disbelief, instantly recognizing Deed's blonde hair just as Andrew had. Deed turned around, locking eyes with Cam. Cam, she greeted with a nod and a slight smile. Deed, Cam echoed in a monotone voice, returning the exact same nod before heading to the kitchen to drop off the bags. He then returned to the living room, sitting down between Mitchell and Andrew. To what do we owe the honor of your visit? Cam asked, and Deed let out a small laugh. I'll be spending the holiday with my family. You know, the usual, she replied, as she started playing with Lily in her stroller. Thanks to her distraction, Deed didn't see the expression on Cam's face, a grimace that made it clear he wasn't exactly thrilled about spending Christmas with Deed for various reasons. Comment from Mitchell and Cameron. Mitchell's mother has a problem with me, Cam said, gesturing at his body, especially his stomach. Mitchell was about to defend his mother, but Cam stopped him by raising his arm. Last Christmas, for example, Cam continued. I gave her a beautiful pair of earrings, and in return, she gave me a gym elliptical machine and a vegetable spinner with a very clear message, he added. Mitchell made a few facial expressions but didn't argue, because, well, Cam was right. The worst part is that the elliptical isn't even useful for Andrew. He'd rather go out for a walk than use that uncomfortable, ugly machine, Cam said with a slight grimace, recalling the elliptical gathering dust in the garage. End of comment. What are you doing to her legs? Mitchell asked, looking at his mother, who was moving Lily's tiny legs slowly and in a strange way. Tai Chi. I do it every day in Sedona. Cameron, you should try it, Deed replied. Well, Tai Chi isn't exactly the best for weight loss, Andrew said casually. Deed, still moving Lily's legs in slow motions, raised an eyebrow and turned her head toward him. Oh? And since when are you an expert, young man? I read a few books. I'm not an expert, but I know that Tai Chi is a Chinese martial art that combines slow movements, meditation, and controlled breathing. It focuses more on balance, stability, and relaxation than on burning calories or building muscle, Andrew responded calmly. Cameron, who had been standing with his arms crossed and a resigned expression, suddenly nodded with enthusiasm. Exactly. That's why I'll never do Tai Chi, Deed. Mitchell sighed. Andrew continued, if you're looking to improve circulation, reduce stress, or increase flexibility, then yes, Tai Chi is a good option. But if we're talking about fat loss, which is clearly the hidden message in your comment. There is no hidden message. Deed interrupted with a tense smile. Andrew looked at her skeptically. Sure. Anyway, for that, you need resistance training, strength exercises, and a healthy diet with a controlled calorie deficit. Cam smiled with satisfaction. Did you hear that, Deed? My son says what I need is a good diet and weights, not energy forms, and balancing yin and yang. Cam, you don't do weights or diet, I don't know why you're celebrating, Mitchell muttered, rubbing his forehead with one hand. Deed clicked her tongue and refocused on Lily. Ugh, you're all so boring. No one appreciates the refinement of Eastern culture. You'll wish you had my flexibility when you reach my age. Before Andrew could continue arguing with her, Deed kept talking. Living in Sedona has changed my life. Every morning, when I wake up, I go to a meditation vortex, and with the help of a shaman, I try to understand how to live spiritually. Mitchell nodded, attempting to look like he found it interesting. Andrew just wanted to go to his room since his time was limited before the game, but leaving would be rude. Kim wanted to put away the groceries he had bought, but he held back and listened to Deed, gathering all the patience he had. I've learned that the only way to move forward to the next level of enlightenment is for all of us to get past the incident, Deed said, her tone turning serious at the last sentence. The faces of Andrew, Mitchell, and Cameron became more serious upon hearing the incident. "Oh no!" Kim murmured. "Why bring that up again?" Andrew thought, slightly furrowing his brow. Comment from Mitchell and Cameron. "The incident?" Mitchell said with a serious expression. "Oh boy," Kim added, shaking his head. "Jay and Gloria got married about a year ago. My mother wanted to attend the wedding to show everyone she was fine with it and had moved on after the divorce. So she asked me to convince Dad and Gloria to invite her and I did." Mitchell explained. "And who warned you it was a terrible idea?" Kim asked, raising his own hand. "Andrew and I," he answered himself. "At first, everything was fine, but things spiraled out of control when my mother got drunk on some Colombian cocktails. She decided to give a speech that was supposed to congratulate the newlyweds, but it quickly turned into an attack on my dad and Gloria," Mitchell continued with a sigh. "That was already bad enough, but the best part was when, in a full drunken rage, Deed marched toward the wedding cake with clear intentions to destroy it," Kim added, trying to suppress a smile. "It's not funny, Cam." Mitchell reprimanded him with a stern look. "Andrew stopped her, he saved the wedding cake and prevented my mom from further ruining the event. But in the process, well, he ended up tackling his own grandmother and knocking her unconscious," Mitchell recounted, rubbing his forehead. Kim couldn't hold back his laughter as he remembered the scene of Deed being taken down. "It's not funny, Cam. It was dangerous," Mitchell insisted, frowning. "Hey, nothing serious happened. Your mother wasn't hurt, and luckily for her, she doesn't even remember being tackled by Andrew. She only recalls the insults and embarrassing comments she threw at Gloria and Jay," Kim justified. Mitchell nodded. "Yeah. Andrew only did something so reckless because he was a little drunk. I've never scolded him so much. What kind of parents let their kid get drunk at a public event?" he said with a sigh. "He still hasn't told us how he managed to get drunk," Mitchell added. Kim rubbed his chin, thoughtful. "I suspect it was Gloria's uncles. I saw them trying to give Manny a glass of whiskey." "That must have been it," Mitchell agreed. End of comment. "So, you want to gather the whole family for Christmas dinner to mend things with Gloria and move forward in your spiritual journey?" Mitchell asked, and his mother nodded. "I think that instead of digging up the incident, maybe it would be better to repress it like any normal family would," Mitchell added, seeing how serious his mother was about this. "I can't. I have to move on. I'm about to embark on a new journey," Deed replied before telling them she had met a man from Canada named Chaz, and he had asked her to live with him in his country. "That's wonderful. Why don't you spend Christmas with him in Canada?" Kim asked, emphasizing Canada. "Yes, go to Canada and stop digging up the incident," Andrew thought with a serious expression. He didn't want Deed to find out that he was the one who knocked her out and left her unconscious. "I want to spend one last Christmas with my family and make amends for my mistakes. When I think about the terrible things I said to Gloria, Jay, Claire, and you, I feel guilty," Deed said with a regretful expression. "Liar!" Andrew thought, not believing a word. He knew that if Deed saw Gloria, she wouldn't be able to contain her jealousy and would lash out at her. "They've all moved on, haven't they, Andrew?" Kim said, looking at Andrew. "Why yes. Absolutely. Gloria doesn't even remember the things you said to her. And you know Grandpa he doesn't care about anything. You can go live with Chaz in Canada without worries," Andrew said, nodding repeatedly. "I can't. If I don't make up for my mistakes myself, I won't be able to give myself to him sexually," Deed explained with extreme seriousness. Andrew nearly choked on his own saliva upon hearing this. "Didn't see that coming," Kim murmured. "Oh God, Mom," Mitchell said, dreading where this conversation was going. "Oh, don't misunderstand me. We are satisfied in that aspect," Deed quickly clarified, wanting to make that clear. "I have homework, and then I need to get ready for the game." "Bye," Andrew said, getting up from the couch and heading to his room. He had already kept Leonard and Howard waiting long enough. He hoped his parents wouldn't agree to his grandmother's ridiculous idea of having a Christmas family dinner with her, Gloria, and Jay all in one place. It was obvious nothing good would come out of it. In fact, he knew it. It had to be avoided at all costs. But this time, he wasn't going to do anything to stop it. He had a life, and the last time he tried to intervene and save the day at his grandfather's wedding he ended up drunk, knocking out his grandmother, throwing up, and waking up with a massive headache the next day. Chapter 58, The Incident 2. Andrew was in his room, sitting on the edge of his bed, while Leonard and Howard were busy editing the video he had recorded to upload it as soon as possible. So, your grandfather's ex-wife almost ruined the wedding with his new wife, but you knocked her out, and now she wants to apologize to them for everything she said. Leonard asked, summarizing what Andrew had told Howard and him. The atmosphere was relaxed, even though the editing was progressing at high speed, with both of them focused on the screen. Exactly. She wants to join the Christmas dinner and be with the whole family. Do you know how disastrous and awkward that dinner would be? They could all end up at the police station along with Gloria, Andrew said, sighing. Howard chuckled. Knocking out your own grandmother. This is the first time I've heard of something like that. Though, she deserved it, Howard said, looking at the monitor while Leonard edited. Make a cut there and add the previous transition, Howard added, pointing at the screen. Leonard quickly nodded and skillfully made the cut and adjusted the transition. I didn't mean to tackle her and knock her out. I was a little drunk, and that's why I acted that way, Andrew said, scratching his head, a bit embarrassed. Howard raised an eyebrow, visibly surprised. You? Drunk? That doesn't make any sense. Since when do you get drunk, Mr. No Alcohol for my body? He asked, mimicking the tone Andrew usually used in his anti-alcohol speeches. Yet, wasn't alcohol supposed to be the worst thing for a fit body? I clearly remember your lectures about how alcohol destroys muscle recovery and affects the nervous system's function, Leonard said, turning around with a slight smirk. I know. Getting drunk wasn't my plan. Andrew said, recalling that day with anything but a happy expression. Andrew's commentary. Andrew, sitting on his bed, looked at the camera while holding a large Darth Vader figure in his hands. The worst thing about betrayal is that it never comes from an enemy, Andrew said solemnly. That day, knowing my grandmother would be at the wedding, it was obvious something bad would happen, so I prepared to prevent it and make sure Gloria's wedding went perfectly, just as she wanted. I assembled a very capable team to keep an eye on my grandmother, but they betrayed me and got me drunk without me even realizing it, Andrew explained, sighing in frustration. End of commentary. So your teammates and your two cousins gave you drinks with alcohol to slowly get you drunk. How did you not notice? Leonard asked, still in disbelief. Howard was trying to hold back his laughter as he focused on editing. They were sneaky. Andrew said, frowning. It wasn't a big shot of tequila or a glass of whiskey. No. They did it with mild drinks, like cocktails that didn't taste like alcohol at all. They looked so fresh and summery. I never even suspected they had alcohol. I didn't feel anything at first. Haley and Alex, those damn traitors, every time I was about to take a sip, they'd say, "Oh, Andrew, you have to try this. It's so good and tastes like strawberry." I had never seen them so united and working as a team. How did I not realize? Andrew added, clenching his fists. Well, at least the cake survived, Leonard commented, trying to lighten the mood. It would have been hilarious to witness that wedding, Howard said, laughing as he tried to imagine a drunk Andrew. There's a video. Steve recorded the entire wedding so he could give the video to my grandfather and get paid for it, Andrew said, recalling Steve's camera. We have to watch that video. Howard exclaimed. No. Keep editing, Andrew immediately replied, helping Leonard and Howard with the editing. By around 6 in the evening, they had finished editing and uploading the video. I have a few minutes before I have to go to the stadium, Andrew thought as he checked the time. Thanks for the help, guys. See you later. The door's open, Andrew said as he got comfortable on his bed. He wanted to take a quick nap. It's nothing. Vacation starts tomorrow. We can finally work on the Flappy Bird update. Howard said excitedly as he waved goodbye and left the room with Leonard. Howard and Leonard headed for the exit. They didn't run into Mitchell or Cam on the way out, so they called out loudly, "Bye, Mitchell. Bye, Cam. See you at the game." Cam's voice echoed from the kitchen. Andrew turned off the light in his room and lay back down, wrapping himself in all his blankets. It was a freezing day. As soon as he closed his eyes, he fell asleep quickly. Time passed slowly, and Andrew continued sleeping, drifting into a deeper and deeper slumber. He had woken up very early that morning to go for a run, and the night before, he had only gotten 4 hours of sleep, far less than his usual strict 8 hours. Everything ready? Mitchell asked, watching as Kim finished setting up the camera to record the big moment, when Andrew's team won the championship, lifted the trophy, and their son received his awards from the California Interscholastic Federation. Yet. Andrew already left, right? Kim replied. Yeah, I assume he went with Leonard and Howard. I checked his room, and it was empty, Mitchell said, recalling the quick glance he had taken inside moments earlier. What Mitchell didn't know was that Andrew was still there, completely hidden under the blankets and thick comforters. The room was in complete darkness, making it nearly impossible to notice his presence at first glance. Besides, the idea of his son still being asleep at that hour was so unlikely that it didn't even cross his mind. Kim nodded and walked over to Lily, lifting her gently. Time to go, sweetheart. Let's go watch your big brother destroy his rivals, okay? He said as he placed her in her car seat. After that, they left the house and headed to the neutral stadium where the final would be played. The clock read 6:25 p.m. It was already completely dark since, during this time of year, the sun set early, before 5. Suddenly, Andrew's bedroom door swung open, letting in a figure that walked toward his bed. Andrew. A voice whispered softly but urgently. Andrew, deep in sleep, didn't wake up until the third call and only after feeling someone gently shaking him. His eyes snapped open, and he immediately realized he had fallen asleep. His mind, foggy from sleep and the darkness around him, couldn't recognize the figure. Who are you? What time is it? Andrew asked urgently, fumbling for the bedside lamp switch on his right. Relax, it's me, Pippa, the voice responded in a soft, warm tone. Pippa reached for the nightstand and turned on the lamp. The warm light filled the room, revealing Pippa's face. Andrew relaxed instantly upon seeing his beautiful girlfriend in front of him. Shit, I fell asleep. What time is it? Andrew asked, suddenly remembering he had a final to play. Calm down, we're still on time. The neutral stadium is about 10 minutes away if we go by bike. It's 6:30, Pippa said with a reassuring smile, helping Andrew relax. Phew. I'll make it in time for warm UPS, Andrew thought, relieved. Usually, they warmed up for about 20 minutes before the game, so if he left now on his bike, he'd arrive just in time. At most, he might miss 5 minutes of warm UPS. How are you here, and how did you get in? Andrew asked, surprised that Pippa had saved him from oversleeping. Even his parents had left, most likely assuming he had already gone. It's easy to get into the house when the key is under a single rock. As for why I came, I texted and called you, but you didn't answer. I asked Leonard if you were with him, but he told me he had just left your house and saw you about to take a nap. So, I came here, Pippa explained. You're truly my lifesaver. Andrew said, both amazed and grateful. Pippa shot him an amused look, as if that conclusion should have been obvious. What about your parents? They let you come all the way here? Are they going straight to the game? Andrew asked, curious. I was at Kara's house, and I told her I'd go home and then head to the game with my family, but I came straight here instead, Pippa admitted, not too embarrassed, though slightly worried about the lie. So, we really need to get to the stadium now because when my parents realize I'm not with Kara and her family, they might think something bad happened, she added, frowning slightly with concern. So, you lied to save me? That's unusual for you, Andrew said with a slight smile. Yes, Kara's parents wouldn't let me walk here alone. I even had to tell them that my mom came to pick me up and was waiting for me on the next block, Pippa replied. Thanks, Andrew said, giving Pippa a soft kiss on her cold lips, since she had walked all the way here. Hee, it's nothing, Pippa chuckled softly as she pulled away from Andrew's lips. Luckily, Andrew had fallen asleep in his clothes, so they quickly left the house and headed to the garage where Andrew kept his bike. This bike doesn't have a back seat, Pippa said as Andrew took out his 29-inch bike with large wheels. You'll need to get on the front tube, Andrew said, pointing to the top tube of the bike frame. Do I really have to get on there? Pippa asked, eyeing the top tube of the bike doubtfully. The spot Andrew indicated didn't seem very comfortable, but she understood there was no other option. Yeah, it'll be fine, plus it's not a long ride, Andrew replied with a smile, trying to make her feel more secure. And trust me, you won't fall. Just need to hold on to me a little, okay? Well, if you say so. Pippa said, hesitating for a moment. But first, the helmet safety first, Andrew said, carefully placing the helmet on Pippa's head. And your safety? Pippa asked, noticing that Andrew wasn't wearing a helmet. I only have one helmet. Andrew replied as he got on the bike. All right, now get on carefully, I'll help you, Andrew said, stretching out his hand for Pippa to grab, giving her more stability. Still a bit unsure, Pippa climbed onto the tube with Andrew's help. At first, balancing felt awkward, but she soon felt a bit more stable. Are you ready? Andrew asked. Yeah, just pedal, Pippa replied, trying to sound confident and not wanting to appear cowardly. Andrew nodded and started pedaling. They had barely gone a few meters when Pippa, overcome with insecurity, wrapped her arms around Andrew tightly, instinctively holding on to his torso. Andrew didn't complain about her holding on so tightly, he kept pedaling, and Pippa, realizing she was safe, calmed down. However, her heart started racing as she realized her face was resting against Andrew's torso. For the first time, she noticed his muscular chest, realizing how strong he truly was. It was the first time she was so close to his physique, and she couldn't help but be surprised at how well-defined it was. His muscles, though soft to the touch, seemed incredibly firm. What are you thinking, Pippa? She thought, trying to push those thoughts away while feeling her cheeks heat up. Andrew pedaled at a moderate pace, being very careful. If he had been alone, his speed would have been much faster, almost dangerously so, but with Pippa, he couldn't do that. Her safety was more important than the game, and being a few minutes late to warm up wasn't a big issue if it meant her safety. During the ride, Andrew began to tell her about the arrival of his grandmother, Deed, and provided some context for the incident, since otherwise, Pippa wouldn't understand anything. Pippa calmed down listening to Andrew's interesting family drama, laughing a lot when she found out that he had gotten drunk and knocked out his grandmother, who had been insulting her ex-husband and his new wife. I don't want to get to the stadium, Pippa thought, as she recovered from the laughter. Hey, those bastards betrayed me and got me drunk. I got back at them by making them train 3 times harder, Andrew said in a more relaxed tone, not getting defensive like he had with Leonard and Howard. It's good that you got your revenge, Pippa said with a slight smile. Did you say that Steve recorded the whole wedding, including you drunk? She asked. Yeah. Andrew replied after a few seconds, not feeling too good about it. Can I see the video? I want to watch it, seeing you in that state, it must be so funny, Pippa asked. Andrew stopped at a corner and looked down where Pippa's head was, though part of the helmet made it hard to see her. He managed to notice the pleading expression on her face. God, Pippa! Andrew murmured, sighing and smiling slightly. All right, I'll let you see it, he agreed easily, unlike when Howard asked and he instantly refused. Promised, Pippa said with a mischievous smile. Finally, they arrived at the neutral stadium, which had a capacity of 5,000 spectators. The place was almost full. One half was packed with the blue and white colors of Palisades School. The other half was full of orange gear with white details, representing Huntington Park High School. Andrew, who had thought it would be hard to get onto the field since he wasn't with his team and they might stop him thinking he was a random, was surprised to see that a man from his school's sports committee was waiting for him. When the man saw him, a huge smile formed on his face, as if it were the happiest moment of his life. Andrew, you finally made it. We were all worried about you. Come on, you need to change and get to the field, said the man enthusiastically, not giving Andrew a chance to speak and immediately began leading him to the locker rooms. Chapter 59, The Incident 3. Andrew changed in the locker room alone and quickly headed to the field. When he stepped onto the field, he was greeted with the usual cheers from his school's crowd. Noticing his family in one of the best seats, he quickly waved at them before starting his warm-up with the rest of the team. This time, he noticed something different about his family's seating arrangement. His parents and little sister were sitting apart from everyone else, along with his grandmother, Deed. Kim had no choice but to support Mitchell and not leave him alone. The Dunphys greeted Deed but then returned to their seats next to Jay, Gloria, and Manny. From a distance, Gloria shot Deed an angry look but said nothing. She knew that Deed was also Andrew's grandmother and had every right to attend the game if she wanted to. As for Jay, he acted as if Deed didn't exist. The best thing to do was ignore everything that had happened and never bring it up again. What they didn't know was that Deed wanted to meet with them to talk about the incident at Christmas dinner and receive everyone's forgiveness so they could move on. After both teams had finished warming up, it was time for each school's cheerleading squad to perform. Since it was the final, both squads had guaranteed time to showcase their shows. Regina led her cheerleaders and, as usual, put on a spectacular performance, completely outshining the rival squad. Veronica was no longer part of the Palisades School cheerleading team. Since Regina had reported her to the principal for blackmail, Veronica had not only been suspended from school for 2 days but also expelled from the cheer squad for trying to take Regina's position. It had been a widely discussed topic at the time, though Andrew hadn't paid much attention to it. "Aren't you going to record the cheerleaders' show, Mr. Pervert?" Lauren asked, looking at Howard, who was holding the camera but wasn't recording or even aiming it at the cheerleaders. "No." Howard replied, slightly frowning at Lauren. "Oh, is that maturity?" "Good for you," Lauren said, acting surprised just to get on Howard's nerves, and she succeeded. What Lauren didn't know was that Howard wasn't recording because the cheerleaders were wearing winter-adapted uniforms. Instead of short skirts, they had on thermal leggings, and some were even wearing team jackets over their uniforms. So, Howard had no interest in filming them. "Shut up, tomboy. I'm sure you'd love for someone to record you while dancing." "Oh, right, you suck at it," Howard said, starting another argument with Lauren. "Here we go again," Leonard and Kara thought, sighing. Leonard pulled Lauren away, while Kara did the same with Howard to stop them from arguing, especially with the game about to start. The game began. Not only would this match decide the regional or sectional champion, but it was even more important because the winner would qualify for the state playoffs, set to take place in January after the winter break. Despite facing their toughest and most skilled opponent yet, it didn't take long for Palisades to gain the upper hand. From the very start, Andrew dominated the field, leading an unstoppable offense against the opposing defense. However, it wasn't as overwhelming as in other games. Andrew focused on quick, precise passes, gaining yards through the air rather than running the ball himself. In the first 2 quarters, he threw 4 touchdown passes, connecting with his receivers, 2 to Allen, 1 to Steve, and 1 to Jason. They then went for the kick, successfully converting and earning an extra point after each touchdown. By halftime, Palisades had put up 28 points, while Huntington Park High School had only managed 7. Andrew wasn't in the mood to play defense today. He didn't want to waste energy and preferred to focus entirely on the offense, partly because he wasn't at 100% due to his lack of sleep. Taking off his helmet, he slumped onto one of the benches near the coach, running a hand through his messy hair as he tried to stifle another yawn. The team gathered around as David started his tactical speech, but Andrew barely listened, still feeling the weight of exhaustion. Despite his efforts to hide it, his yawn didn't go unnoticed. In the stands, murmurs quickly spread. In the middle of a final, completely destroying the other team, and he yawns like it's just another routine game. "That's insane," Zach muttered, frowning in a mix of confusion and admiration. Pippa and the others, watching from a distance, had also noticed. Howard, who recorded that moment knowing it would be a highlight in the YouTube video, couldn't shake the thought of Andrew's family incident. He murmured thoughtfully, "I wonder what he's like when he's drunk." Leonard nodded slowly. "Yeah. He always has endless energy, competes like his life depends on it, is so disciplined he seems like a robot with his diet and training, and now imagine him drunk." Andrew mentioned there's a wedding video, meaning there's footage of him drunk and knocking out his grandma. "He's going to show it to me tomorrow," Pippa said with an amused smile. "What? That bastard! I asked to see that video, and he refused instantly," Howard exclaimed indignantly. "But he shows it to you without hesitation," he added. "Well, obviously. I'm his girlfriend," Pippa replied casually. "This is blatant favoritism. It's not fair." "I want to see it too," Howard said, crossing his arms. "Well, you can come and watch it with us tomorrow," Pippa offered. "All right, we will," Howard said instantly. "The only problem is Andrew actually letting us watch it too," Leonard said, unsure. It seemed like Andrew was embarrassed to show a video of himself drunk and knocking out his grandma. "Don't worry. I always end up convincing him when I want something," Pippa said with a confident smile. "You have powers we will never have," Howard said with fake admiration. Pippa just laughed. "Why do I feel like we're completely out of the loop here?" Zach asked Kara and Lauren, who barely understood the conversation. The talk about the video of drunk Andrew didn't go unnoticed. Nearby, Andrew's family, Phil, Claire, Jay, Gloria and the rest overheard the words "Andrew drunk, wedding video, and knocked out grandma," and all their heads immediately turned in their direction. "Oh, I want to see that video too. That was one of the best nights of my life. Andrew and I were a legendary duo that night," Phil said excitedly. "I don't know if legendary is the right word. It was a disaster. Besides my mother's drunkenness, Andrew drunk was just as bad, and one of his friends brought a football, which only made things worse," Claire said, clearly disagreeing with Phil. "Oh, please!" Jay exclaimed with a loud laugh. "That kid did what we've all wanted to do for years." Watching Deed go down like a sack of potatoes was the highlight of the wedding. He added, laughing even harder. Gloria nodded, flashing all her teeth in a wide grin, clearly delighted at the memory. "Oh yes, it was like watching a dream come true. That brouhaha, which, deserved it. If Andrew hadn't done it, I would have," she said. "Looks like everyone got a front row seat to him being drunk," Leonard commented. "Of course, and let me tell you, it was magnificent. I had never seen Andrew so relaxed and fun. He danced, sang, gave emotional speeches, and then, when Deed started insulting Jay and Gloria, boom! Tackled to the ground." Phil recounted the event as if it were the most entertaining thing in the world. "Don't you guys have the video? It's your wedding, you don't need his permission," Howard said, now more eager than ever to see it. "No. Andrew made sure to take it and got his friend to hand over the only copy. I hired the kid because he wanted to make some money with his new camera. But he was an amateur, so I also hired a professional to film the wedding properly. But that guy didn't capture what really mattered," Jay explained, talking more than usual. "Let me guess, he didn't record drunk Andrew in full close-up like Steve did," Pippa said. "Exactly. And he also didn't catch all the chaos when Deed started insulting people and making a scene before getting knocked out," Jay nodded with a grimace, regretting hiring such a useless videographer. Gloria smiled mischievously and said, "The most important part of the wedding. We need to see that video. Pippa, you're his girlfriend, please convince him to let us watch it too," Claire said, looking at Pippa. "Didn't you say it was a disaster?" Phil asked. "Well, yes, it was a disaster, but an entertaining and satisfying disaster," Claire admitted with a shrug. "Come on, Pippa, this is family history," Phil insisted enthusiastically. "Andrew never lets loose like that. It was legendary. He should upload it to his YouTube channel, it would go viral, and everyone would get to know his cool uncle." "Me?" Jay nodded with a satisfied smile. "And I want to see Deed falling again. It brightens my day." "All right. I'll do my best to get Andrew to let us all watch it," Pippa finally said. Though now, she wasn't so sure it was too many people, not just Leonard and Howard anymore. A chorus of cheers and satisfied expressions echoed around her. "You all should be thanking me," Alex suddenly interjected, adjusting her glasses. Everyone turned to look at her curiously. "Why?" Leonard asked. "Because if Andrew ended up drunk, it was thanks to me. Though Haley and Andrew's idiot friends deserve a little credit," Alex revealed with a smug smile. Alex needed the help of Andrew's friends to distract the adults and get the alcohol to slowly get her cousin drunk. She also relied on Haley to convince him to take the drinks, since it would have been suspicious if she were the only one offering him shot after shot. You got your cousin drunk?" Claire said in disbelief, furrowing her brows at her daughter. "Oh, please, Mom. Andrew played a prank on me before the wedding. I had to get him back," Alex said, rolling her eyes. "We'll talk about this later, young lady," Claire said in a low, stern tone. Alex huffed and crossed her arms. She knew punishment was inevitable, but at least she would get credit for making the wedding far more interesting. Since everyone would see the video, they would find out she was the mastermind behind the plan. If she was going to be punished by her mother, she might as well get recognition for getting her cousin drunk and making the wedding way more entertaining. The final game resumed, and the group stopped talking about the wedding video, focusing entirely on the match. Palisades School's dominance remained firm in the last 2 quarters, although this time they focused their offense on the running game. Andrew continued leading the offense with precision, delivering passes to Archie and Reggie, who consistently advanced on the ground, scoring 3 additional touchdowns and successfully securing 2-point conversions each time. By the end of the game, the scoreboard displayed a crushing defeat, 52-15 in favor of Palisades High School. Huntington Park High School was unable to repeat last year's feat and claim the regional championship. They were outmatched in every aspect of the game, only managing to improve slightly on offense, as Andrew was not on defense. With this victory, Palisades High School was crowned CIF LAX, Los Angeles City Section, Division 5 champions, securing their first ever qualification for the state championships, where they would face the champions of the other 9 CIF sections. After the game, an awards ceremony was held, where trophies and medals were presented to each player on the team, along with individual awards for the best players of the Division 5 section tournament. Andrew was honored with several of these awards, standing out as one of the tournament's most valuable players. This victory marked the first title in Palisades School's history and a historic milestone for the team as they stepped into uncharted territory, the state championships. Chapter 60, The Incident 4. YouTube. Television Section Champions, dominant victory in final game 52-15 highlights. Bust in silhouette Andrew Pritchett Tucker. Pushpin 33,894 subscribers. 95,847 views. Hourglass with flowing sand posted 3 days ago. Speech balloon 1,236 comments. Comments section. At Prince HKS, what is this guy doing playing in a 5th division school? He could easily be playing at elite schools. At Clarence 77, did anyone notice that Andrew was playing at half speed? Skull. At Gridiron Fan 23, the craziest thing is that during halftime before the third quarter, he was seen yawning, and he still threw a 50-yard pass like it was nothing. At Max Torque, the most dominant quarterback I've ever seen at this level. It's like he plays in slow motion while everyone else is running for their lives. At Hawk Nation 14, 52-15 in a final. This wasn't even a game, it was an execution. At Big Joe 93, crying in HD because my school lost to this monster. Loudly crying face. At Eagle Pride 67, I can't wait to see this kid in college football. He's going to destroy defenses. At Hater_69, nah, he's overrated. I want to see him against real defenses, not a 5th division defense. At Cataction 67, Met, back in my day, there was real competition. At Monica GR, great game, but Andrew, listen to me. You cannot yawn in the middle of a game. You should have destroyed them by 80 points, not just 52. Next time, not a second of rest. I want blood on the scoreboard. At QB Queen 69, Andrew, marry me. I don't care that you're 15. I will wait for you. Smiling face with heart-shaped eyes fire. At Statman 89, Andrew Pritchett Tucker, 4 touchdowns, 450 passing yards, 3 touchdown passes to his running backs, 1 yawn. At Benchwarmer 89, it's so easy to look good when you're playing against defenses that run slower than my grandma. At Lil Timmy 13, my brother is Huntington Park's linebacker, and he's still looking for his dignity on the field after that juke in the third quarter. At Edward Coach, his level is meant for higher divisions. That's where we'll see what he's really capable of. Andrew looked at his video's stats with satisfaction. In just 3 days, it had almost 100,000 views, a great daily average. At this rate, it would become his most watched video, and the best part was that he was already making money from ads. As for the comments, he couldn't read them all. However, even if he didn't want to admit it, the haters, though not many, had a point. Even though his opponent was the regional playoff finalist, the gap between this competition and a 1st or 2nd division school was huge. In higher divisions, players were stronger, faster, and better trained. Plus, the coaches had much more experience and advanced strategies. But at the end of the day, Andrew knew he would dominate just the same. His confidence didn't come from arrogance but from the absolute certainty that he was on another level. Not only did he have the experience of someone who had already played and won at this level in his past life, but with years of extra training and discipline, he had become a much stronger version of himself. For him, playing at an elite school wouldn't be a real challenge. He had already done it before and dominated. Surrounded by talented players, with top-tier coaches and well-structured schemes, the game would be too easy. His team would execute plays perfectly, his receivers would always be in the right place, his offensive line would protect him like a wall, and with his current level, there wouldn't be any real difficulty. The games could be just as easy as his match against Huntington Park School. How could he improve? On the other hand, leading a 5th division team to the top was a challenge that would force him to grow as a player. Even though he had won all his games effortlessly so far, he knew that would eventually change. His team's level wouldn't be enough. Moving up divisions meant facing stronger, better trained teams with more individual talent. While he had his childhood friends, whom he had personally trained, he knew they were just a minority. The rest of the team consisted of 5th division players with technical and physical limitations that would inevitably be exposed against tougher opponents. When that moment came, Andrew would have to push his abilities to the limit. That was what motivated him. If he wanted to keep evolving and improving as a player before entering college, this was the best path. Even so, if in his 3rd or 4th year he decided to seek more visibility, he would always have the option of transferring to an elite school, where he could ensure he was on the radar of college recruiters. But in reality, he was already gaining visibility on his own. His highlights on YouTube were going viral, and the fact that he was leading a 5th division team, one that had never won a championship, to the 4th or even 3rd division would be an achievement that would catch the attention of any elite university. After thinking about this, Andrew closed the YouTube tab and, checking the time, left his room. In about 10 minutes, Pippa would arrive to watch the wedding video, the one where he was drunk and knocked out Deed. He prepared the video to watch in the living room with Pippa. After all, his parents had already witnessed the event, and it wasn't like they were going to watch it, or so he thought. "Are you seriously going to watch the video where you knock out your grandma?" Mitchell asked, arms crossed, as Andrew set everything up. "Yeah, Pippa asked me to." "Bad timing, I guess," Andrew replied with a shrug. He knew his dad wasn't too happy about it, but it wasn't his fault that Deed had decided to visit this year for Christmas and wanted to bring up the incident with Jay, Gloria, and the rest. Mitchell had already promised his mother that he would organize a Christmas gathering. Kem and Andrew didn't think it was a good idea, but Deed had already manipulated Mitchell into taking care of everything. The doorbell rang. "You can join us. I'm sure you'll enjoy the tackle," Kem said, already seated on the couch, looking at Mitchell. "I don't want to watch my mother get tackled by my drunk son," Mitchell said as he walked toward the kitchen. "Your dad has no sense of humor, does he?" Kem asked, looking at Lily, who, surprisingly, nodded. Andrew headed to the door, and when he opened it, he was shocked by the number of people standing there: his grandpa, his uncles, Gloria, Manny, his cousins, Howard, Leonard, and Pippa, the only one he had been expecting. "Hey, Andrew." Pippa greeted him with a nervous half-smile, since she hadn't found the perfect moment to ask if his entire family and his 2 friends could watch the video too. "Hey! Why is everyone here?" Andrew asked, sensing that something was off and narrowing his eyes at Pippa. "We wanted to relieve the wedding, what else?" Alex answered with an innocent smile, which only made Andrew glare at her. She had been the mastermind behind his drunken state, and now she had the audacity to act like nothing had happened. "Come on. We just want to watch the video. A little joy before Christmas," Jay said with a slight smile. "A joy you'll soon experience in person." Andrew thought. "Exactly. The dynamic duo is back together to relieve the mischief they got into that day," Phil said enthusiastically. Andrew sighed in frustration, but before he could say anything, Pippa stepped forward and gently took his arm. "Let's talk in private for a second," she said quickly, pulling him toward another room before he could protest. "Let's go in, she'll convince him somehow," Jay said as he entered the house, followed by everyone else. They quickly settled into the living room, noticing that Andrew had already set everything up. There, they greeted Cam, Lily, and Mitchell, who had come out to see what was happening and why he was hearing so many voices. "Let's make some popcorn, buddy," Phil said, and he and Luke headed to the kitchen with total confidence, as if they were at home. Alone with Pippa, Andrew looked at her with a frown, hearing the murmurs from the others in the living room. "I'm guessing they asked you to convince me to let them watch the video," he said. "Yeah, but I didn't get a chance to bring it up earlier, and I didn't want to disappoint them. They were all so excited, and well, I couldn't say no." "Are you mad?" Pippa asked, stepping closer to him, intertwining her hands with his, and looking at him with puppy dog eyes. Andrew looked at her with resignation. He knew perfectly well that she was using her charm against him, and the worst part was that it worked. "I'm not mad. Let's watch the video, and you'll see the moment everyone is so eager to see," Andrew said, exhaling a deep sigh. It was time to get over the embarrassment of being seen drunk. After all, his family mainly wanted to watch the video for the grand moment when Deed got knocked out. "I knew you'd say yes," Pippa said, smiling at Andrew's approval and giving him a quick kiss on the lips. They returned to the living room together, where everyone was already seated, ready to watch the video. Phil arrived just in time with popcorn and a drink. Even Mitchell joined in, not wanting to be the only one left out. Andrew sat on a chair, and Pippa sat on his lap. Since there wasn't much space, there were too many people gathered to witness the video. With the remote in hand, he pressed play. Wedding video. The scene shifts to the same living room where everyone is gathered now, the Tucker Pritchett house. There, Andrew and his friends, Reggie, Archie, and Kevin, could be seen dressed in elegant suits. "Why are you recording now?" Archie asked when he noticed Steve pointing a camera at them, a small red light glowing. "I'm testing how this thing works. I need to do a good job," Steve replied. "To do a good job, you first need to not have Parkinson's," Reggie said with a slight smirk, making the others laugh except for Steve. "Ha, ha, very funny," says the guy who couldn't throw a pass without his hand shaking when he tried playing quarterback. Steve shot back. "That was a long time ago," Reggie exclaimed, a bit embarrassed about the time he attempted to be the backup quarterback for a few minutes when Andrew hadn't arrived for the game. "Enough, both of you. Remember to keep a close eye on my grandma. I already showed you the picture. We need to stop her before she tries anything," Andrew said, cutting the argument short before it escalated. "I'll be recording. There's not much else I can do, but if I see anything, I'll let you know," Steve said. "It's going to be boring watching her all night, it's a party." "I'm sure there'll be some beautiful Colombian girls," Reggie complained, already imagining himself meeting a Colombian girl at the party and having a brief romance. "And what will you do if there is one?" Kevin asked, raising an eyebrow. "I'll use my tactics to win her over," Reggie responded with a confident smile. "No way you will," Archie said with a smile, and they started discussing who would dare flirt with one of the Colombian girls. "This team is not very reliable," Andrew thought but said nothing. There's a cut, and the next scene takes place at the wedding. The atmosphere was lively, with music playing and guests enjoying the celebration. Reggie and company, though initially focused on their task of keeping an eye on Deed, were quickly swept up in the party. The fun, the noise, and the laughter distracted them from the responsibility Andrew had given them. Eventually, the moment where everything began was shown. Alex approached Steve and the others excluding Andrew and persuaded them to help with her plan. She told them it was time to get back at Andrew for always pushing them hard in training and that it would be fun to see him drunk and not so serious. Reggie, Archie, and Kevin's task was to distract the adults while Alex and Haley stole alcohol and other drinks to mix cocktails. They then brought the drinks to Andrew, convincing him to take them. The alcohol content was so low at first that Andrew accepted, but little by little, the amount in his system increased. It was a slow process, but over time, Alex's plan worked. Andrew wasn't completely drunk, but he was far more relaxed than usual. His usual controlled and responsible demeanor faded. He became more outgoing, letting go of his usual caution. The concern for his grandmother Deed, which had seemed like a priority at first, quickly disappeared. From that moment on, everything began to spiral out of control.
Thanks for listening.